All right, guys, before we go any further into the video, I want to take a minute to tell you guys about my friends over at Sleeper. Sleeper is a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. Download the app to your phone. You can celebrate and chat about sports in real time with other users. You can get scores, news, and alerts with blazing fast speed. And you can play in daily fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports together. Download Sleeper today, and don't forget to use my promo code SBN for up to $100 match on your first deposit. Plus, they currently have a free $20 entry, no deposit required, just make an account. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. So check out Sleeper and have fun with sports this year. Hello. How's it going, everybody? Good afternoon. And things are different now. Me and Brandon have been doing this show for 5 NFL seasons now. And for the first time, we are doing it as Super Bowl champions. So it feels different. Everything is different now. The team has done things that we have not seen them do in over a decade. The team has met and surpassed every reasonable expectation you could have. And we're here now, and we got to talk about it. But I mean, just understand that they've done it. They have officially, finally done it. And there's nothing anybody can take away from there. There's nothing anybody else can say. They're champions. So I'm Brendan. That is Brandon. How you doing today, Brandon?
Brother, I'm still on cloud nine a week later. And how nice as you said at the front of this, just that we've been doing this for 5 years and building up to this game, not just for the length of time and that we've done, but we've been kind of through this 5 years of this build process to get here. For while they are a young team and while this was completely out of left field in so many ways for so many to get to this high rung this early, it was still one that we got to see as it went through its step-by-step process to getting it. And it's not an overnight success. It's one that was started back a few years ago. And it's been just so much fun to be able to cover this with you and understand as we try to do the analysis and we try to learn our process and get better at looking at the team and what we're seeing, that a lot of things that we got to talk about and think that we were seeing as being true and should carry forward did happen to carry forward kind of in full in a lot of ways, and just makes it feel all the better. But how are you doing, champ?
It's hard to do much better, right? This is what you fight for, right? This is why you invest part of your life into rooting for a team, right? For moments like this. And a lot of the time it feels like being a fan of a team isn't worth it because these moments are so rare. But then you get to that moment and you realize, no, it's worth it. It is worth it. You know, you're not going to experience it every time. You know, you're not going to even experience it most of the time. But we are here, and we can safely say that what we are going through right now makes the last decade plus worth it.
Indeed, it does. It's been those tough times. And like you say, we got into the late teens, and we were probably thinking around that time, especially as the Wilson era rounded down, how long is this going to have to be before we can get even close to this? This feels so far. And so it is one that's made it worthwhile, though, but it makes you savor it, doesn't it? All the much more when you finally do get there after a long time kind of a way.
Absolutely. And again, these moments, they're not going to be here forever. We're not going to do this every year. So you have to take the time and take the opportunity to appreciate the fact that it has happened, because one day it's going to leave, and there are probably going to be lean years at some point, and you need moments like this to make it all worth it, to go through those lean years and understand that you can come out of it and ascend back to the top again. And, you know, to this team's credit, they never really had to bottom out to get to this point. They never bottomed out over the last decade plus, but still, though, you take a look at it, there was a time where you had to ask yourself, you know, this is not the most big market team in the league. This is not the most appealing free agent destination. Are we ever going to get back to the top? Is it gone forever? Like, that thought may have crossed your mind at some point. And no, we're here.
Yeah, you didn't know with Jody what she was going to do after taking over with Paul. You know, was she really in? Was she out? Portland Trailblazer fans were telling you it's horrible. You know, she doesn't want to really own a team. So you're like, oh my gosh, you know, it does. Like, we're have to wait to the next owner, and then we're going to probably have to reset the stack again. And No, not at all. And testament to the front office, the ownership, the players themselves. And while you and I are going to do a lot of gassing folks up throughout this offseason, and because we believe it, not because we're gassing people up artificially, but because we're looking at the cap situation, we're looking at this young roster, and we're going to say, yeah, this is a team that every bit can potentially repeat. But that you never know if they're going to capture that. I don't know if you felt it as well, but this sort of special spirit that sort of united this whole team. It was a different one from the LOB years where there was sometimes a feeling of cliques on that team where you had the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball. And then you'd have a few people who would go between like Marshawn. But aside from that, it was like they were in their own separate kind of way. And that this one was more of one that felt unified, even one through, as they said, the 70 point of the roster, and not just big talk and what they wanted to say like it was a slogan, but actually something that they believed. And that stood out to me in this team. And I don't know if they'll be able to. We might be just every bit more talented next year, Brendan, and every bit potentially better down the line in a lot of ways. But can you capture that same hungry spirit? Can you still capture that same brotherhood of spirit that just united everything across the board?
Yeah. And, for my part, I can say that it's more likely than not that we don't repeat just because repeating's hard. If you had the opportunity to pick the Seahawks or pick the field, I think most people would pick the field. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not sitting here and saying they are going to repeat. I'm saying they are well positioned to get an opportunity to repeat. And I think this team is positioned more so than at least the average championship winning team to have another shot at it in 2026. So I am thinking about that, of course, while still appreciating the 2025 that we had. And I mean, hey, it's great that we're even able to have the conversation, even if it doesn't work out our way. Getting the opportunity to talk about a potential repeat means that you won it once, and that's pretty sweet.
Is there something you think singularly that the Seattle Seahawks did from a standpoint of their philosophy, motivation, how they purposefully drove it? It can be almost anything across the board from your perspective of this, but just be interested to know, just is there something that you think that was the thing that they grabbed? They talk about the chasing edges, let's say, maybe the edge that stood out to you most.
I mean, the thing that I kind of keep going back to is, have you seen the Mic'd Up for the Super Bowl yet?
I watched it this morning. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched it a couple nights ago.
So good.
But I think the thing that really stands out is you go back to week 11, the game where Sam Darnold throws 4 interceptions and we lose to the Rams, which is the last time that we lost. Of course, we have not lost since. And coming out of that game, you had the way that Ernest Jones was acting, where he said, we didn't do enough to support him, and I don't want to hear anything negative about my quarterback. And there was a real sense that he was taking it personally, and he wasn't getting down on a teammate for failing to perform in a big game. And he was looking within and really trying to understand what he could have done better in a game where the defense played incredibly well, by the way. The defense was remarkable in that game, and he's still looking within, still trying to figure out what could I have done that was better? What could I have done that would have made things, what could I have done to take this over the top, to win despite the 4 interceptions by the quarterback? And then you look at the mic'd up from the Patriots side of it. There was that one point near the end of the game where you had Milton Williams and Christian Barmore talking to each other near the end when the game was over. And the thing that Milton Williams keeps saying over and over again is, it's not our fault. He says it like 6-7 times in a row. It's really weird too, because look, I know those guys played a good game, but we ran the ball for like 160 yards on them. So you can't tell me you did everything right. But I look at something like that, and it does kind of highlight to me the difference here. That does, to me, kind of, there's this strong contrast of, you got on one side a team that is always thinking about what they individually can do more. Even if they did great, they're always thinking about, could I have taken it to the next level? Could I have lifted things up even more than I did? And then on the other side, you have the defensive tackles on the Patriots just thinking about how, well, we just lost the Super Bowl, but I didn't do anything wrong. I go back to something like that right now, I think, because that stood out to me watching that mic'd up compared to what we had with our team.
Yeah, I think you're touching on some of these elements exactly along the lines of what I'm feeling from them in this, and that's very unusual. As you do think back to even the LOB days and some of that, They definitely would go head to head on stuff, and I think that was really what of course eventually sunk them a little bit with some of the ego or credit or some of that stuff that started par up. I think that you touch on though with Ernest and what you feel from this team too is that there doesn't seem to be as much that sense of guys looking for I'm the best, or I'm the part of the reason for this, or that there's some of that coming. I'm not saying that was like a huge problem in the prior, but that it was there a little bit. I don't know if I feel it as much on this one. It just feels like guys, again, I know they're saying the right thing, but don't you also feel like it's a lot of what they say? And Ernst says, F you. We've heard Terrell Owens, that's my quarterback, do these kind of moments where it's obviously theatrical. And this doesn't feel theatrical at any time from them. Even on those sideline moments, you feel them mic'd up like you talked about, where, dude, it just feels like honest, true energy coming from them, and that they've really forged this. And it may help to really sustain them, not to look too far ahead too fast with this. Is this really about point about why you won this game, why you got this team to where you did this season? But it stood out.
Yeah, and other than the stuff about defending his quarterback, when do you ever hear Ernest Jones say much of anything? He's not some loud, demonstrative Terrell Owens kind of guy. Like, T.O. is obsessed with attention at all times. So when he does something like that, it feels fake because we know he loves attention. I don't think Ernest Jones loves attention.
No, I got the impression this was a thing where he did it in the moment as much as what you want leaders to do, because leaders say things at the right moments, right? They'll say the right thing, but it's also to pick the right moment when you need to say it, when you know it's going to have a resonating effect in the way that I'm sure that he was hoping it would, and the way that Sam multiple times over said that it did. Because you have in Sam a guy that we all know, coming in, that people are just battering this guy left and right, coming into this season still, off that playoff performance against the Rams last year. He has a great start, has a couple of those interceptions lead up to that 4-interception game. He can sense the wolves are at his feet. Those people that have those takes of him of being that, see, what I told you, same old Sammy, same old Sam. And so there's like a mob of guys, to use our own term, like at his feet like that, just ready to pounce on him the second he has this kind of performance like that Ram. And he knows that. And so him coming out that moment, it's not artificial. It's also like this team, everything they seem to do was with purpose. I'm doing this to do this true, and I have a purpose to this. And it's not fake. It isn't, I'm just saying it to say it. I'm going to show you I believe it. And you mentioned that sideline moment you just referenced a second ago from within this game where Jones is on that sideline, not even talking to Sam the moment, just talking to himself, just looking at the scoreboard, just still that same spirit coming out of him of, you got it, Sammy. Come on. You take him down now, 1-4. Take him down 1-4.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it does feel like the whole team's pretty much on the same page. Maybe you could make an argument that Woolen's kind of on his own planet sometimes. Maybe he's kind of just on an island there. But, you can have one bozo. You just can't have two, because then they start hanging out and then they bounce off each other. And I feel like as long as you have just the one, it's okay. And Woolen's probably not going to be here next year anyway at this point. I seriously doubt it. I think we all know where that's going. And other than that, like, the team seems pretty stable. Like, well, what about this team stands out to you as something that is volatile or combustive or something that can go wrong in the next in the next year or two?
I really can't see it. It is the ego thing, and studying up on this. I went back and looked at, I remember watching a documentary after the LOB stuff, and when we were in 16 and 17, and it was a 85 Bears documentary, and kind of the same thing. These teams that sometimes can win young and win early can't lose that spirit. And you start to backtrack. Well, why do they? What is it upends? Is it the free agents? You just lose too many free agents? Is you lose too many coaches? It's kind of not that. Yeah, that's a part that comes into effect, but what it really comes down to is somehow the ego comes in and upended. The 85 Bears, everybody started jumping forward. I want credit. Why don't I get a commercial? Why does he get a commercial and I don't get a commercial? And it was all through the whole squad, and it kept them then from getting back there. I don't know if you had a chance to ever watch the Cowboys documentary that came out this last year, but Jerry Jones just couldn't help himself. He just couldn't help himself. He couldn't sit on, I'm successful, this is going great. All I got to do is hit the cruise control button and we're going to go win another 2-3 Super Bowls. But he just couldn't, I'm not getting quite enough credit. Oh, no, it was me who really bailed this. I mean, Jimmy's just over there. 99 coaches could have done this. Remember that quote,
I think
And
it was like
like
five. I think
that's
he said 500, not 99.
yes, yeah, yeah, I'm being kind to Jerry. So if like 500, there's always this pull in these situations. It seems like for ego to take over and across the board, and like you just said, the team's so well suited for that, not seemingly to become the case.
Yeah, yeah, I'm thinking about it. I'm looking up and down this roster. I mean, things can change, right? Like maybe JSN will turn into that kind of guy in the future, but right now doesn't seem like it. And, I don't see any way he could say I'm not getting the ball enough. He gets the ball more than just about anybody in the league. So I'm not really worried about that right now. Clearly, Ken Walker, assuming he comes back at this point, I think he does. That's a
Mm.
very quiet and chill dude. That doesn't strike me as somebody who's ever going to be any kind of a problem whatsoever. And what Demarcus Lawrence at 34 years old is suddenly going to turn into a problem? No, that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, life is good. Life is good with this team. Now, I'm not saying that means they're going to repeat. I'm not even necessarily saying that means they're better positioned to repeat than the LOB team, but it does set you up pretty well for a long run of relevance.
Amen. Yeah, this is one where whether we're talking repeat or just into the future, this team, everything you just said is to the truth and heart of it, and it's going to help them because as they go in the future, and if they don't get back next year, you can come back to that standard. What it was that we did? How did we get to that place? What was it we strove for in the year? Have we been off that path now, where we are now? And you can kind of come back to it as always that sort of North Star to guide you back onto the right tracks here, because it's not only a recipe for their success this year and for what you can do in the future if you can put these elements together. It's, of course, as we talked about throughout the course of the end of this year, this is a recipe that has won many, many decades over in football. Despite any area you want to look at individually, you can find so many examples of this brand of football with this kind of team that plays together with this unified spirit in this way. Is a team that's won very often and will so again in the future.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think that this team, and maybe they don't repeat, but I think that we're going to come out of next season feeling like the team defended their title well. And
Mm.
that is an important element here, right? Because you have, every year somebody has to win the title, right? Theoretically, you could have a year where every team's bad and then one of those bad teams wins the title. But if you come out the next year and you defend your title with pride and you make it clear that it wasn't a mistake that you won, that means something. Like the 2014 team didn't repeat, but there was no doubt that they defended the title very well. And they made it clear 2013 was not a fluke. So if they
Mm.
go out there and do that in 2026, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good with that. I'm going to be happy with that.
To your point on that, you have the teams that are win Super Bowls and then people literally forget about them 5 minutes after they win it. No one's ever going to forget the LOB. That's never gonna fade into Peyton Manning winning his last Super Bowl with the Broncos. When like it wasn't the no fly. What was it? No fly zone? Was it that really going back to your point, going to back even if you couldn't win it, and the fact you had your whole secondary just destroyed in that game is a decent reason as to why that happened. But that you did, that stamped them in. And likewise, to your point, whether this was a nondescript Super Bowl for many nationally out there or not, you gained the Super Bowl and going back and doing it again would absolutely stamp this team in from a historical perspective as well.
Right. And, let's not get it twisted here. I know people are talking about how, oh, that Super Bowl sucked. That wasn't a fun game. And I can understand that argument. I don't think it's baseless, but the real Super Bowl was 3 weeks ago.
Mm.
Let's be real here. And by the way, that used to always be the case. A lot of people don't remember this because, I mean, I don't remember it. It happened before I was watching football when I was really young or before I was born. But there was a long period of time where the Super Bowl was just like basically a parade for the NFC team. And the AFC team was just there to get flattened. Like the 85 Bears, that 96 Packers team, all those years, the Bills went to the Super Bowl to get demolished. The Broncos would go to the Super Bowl a bunch with Elway and just get drilled. Like that's the
Dallas,
way
Washington.
yeah, that's the way it used to be. Like people, I feel like kind of forgotten about that because obviously it's kind of equalized over the last couple decades. But this was just another one of those years where the real Super Bowl was the NFC Championship game, and that was a great game. So
Yeah, I mean the AFC has a lot of talent, but it collapsed this year for not for crazy reasons. Some of it was just Chiefs were going to run into this kind of year eventually, and you could see them start to run out of gas by the end of last year. The Ravens, likewise, Lamar and all of his running arounds kind of caught up to him, a little bit. Bills never got their defense quite taken care of. There's all these like individual reasons for what happened with the Titans falling, and then even those up and coming rising teams like Daniel Jones and the Colts having something horrific happen that keeps them from going to where they need to go. And that I thought it was a wonderful Super Bowl myself. I enjoyed every single second of it. I don't need an exciting Super Bowl. I'll take another beat down, because again, the beat down just solidifies as much as anything people love a great game, but this will solidify your greatness as well. And I think this team was truly great this year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I wanted a blowout too. I didn't want a close game. I want them to win by as much as they can. I want the game to be as unengaging as possible, because I want it to be a statement about how dominant this team is. So I'm good with that. I just understand why objective fans that are not necessarily fans of either team, or people that are objective observers, might say that was not a great Super Bowl. It wasn't. But for me, it did affirm. I mean, the reason why it wasn't a great Super Bowl is because New England was not on our level. Let's be clear about that. They did not cross the 40-yard line until the fourth quarter.
Yeah. They had the easiest schedule. We went through it many different times, and this is where people don't like it. They try to deny it. Patriot fans, of course, got pissy with both. I'm sure got into your chat and was pissy with you too about it. It's like, look, it's great. You guys took advantage, and you took great. We took advantage even in the Super Bowl. It's not a bad thing against you that you got this, but you got on the back of the benefit of being able to have the easiest Super Bowl path that we've seen for any team coming out of the AFC in quite a long period of time, if maybe ever. And that's when you run up against a buzzsaw. One truth's going to bear out and play out when it all breaks down on that, and we saw that last Sunday.
Yeah. And you again, I go back to the mic'd up here. Vrabel's got nothing. Vrabel had nothing that whole game. All he did, he was like one of those dolls with the pull string that you pull, and then he spits out some platitude every time you pull it. It was like, keep your head up. We knew it was going to be a fight. Over and over.
The head up. He was up to chest too. Head up, chest up. Head up, chest up, boys. Chest up, head up. Head up, chest up, boys. Boys, chest up, head up. Up and down the line of them. Like,
he knows they're going to get it's going to, like, he kind of knows that in order for the Patriots to win that game, Darnold's just going to have to lose his mind and throw like 3 pick sixes. That's what it takes.
Well, didn't you get that impression? Because some people are bashing it and they're like, man, look at the difference between these coaches. And like, Vrabel is a great coach, but I think that you just touched on it. Maybe you disagree. I think he knew very well what he was walking up against. He's a very smart very smart football mind. I mean, he's just as in depth as you can get on this stuff. And he knows what this matchup, he knows that he's early here. He knows the level of talent he's going up against on that defense, and how young his quarterback is, and how smart Mike is. I don't think he had any compunction about not. And like you said, it didn't mean that he gave up or he's rolling over and showing his belly. It just meant the fact that, you could feel from his body energy that, his brain wasn't lying to him, and he could see it in clear technicolor out there on the field, what was, true to what he was probably thinking of for a 2-week period leading up to this game.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, look, Vrabel is a CEO style coach. He's not going to be the guy proposing adjustments and schematic changes and things. I get that. But it's really hard to listen to Vrabel on that mic'd up and then contrast that with what you're seeing and hearing from McDonald and feel like Coach of the Year was awarded properly this season. Like, it's just hard.
Yeah, to your point, I got asked to vote on this online deal for Coach of the Year. That's like this new thing they're doing this year. And I was, for a while there, with Shanahan even ahead of Vrabel, because again, the schedule thing to me was a factor within all this. And it's great the work you did on that schedule, but you didn't have the pathway, whereas a guy like Shanahan did. But I came down to the end of it, and this was at the point I got a chance to be pretty deep in the season with McDonald, and I just said, I got to go with McDonald here. The job you've done with the third youngest roster, the Niners the Niner fans toss this excuse all the time at me. Well, we got $100 million of dead money, we had to eat $100 million dead money and then the injuries, which is true. It's not a fallacy. It's a fact, but I get that. But then we did it also with the third youngest roster and $80 million of dead money on our books, Brendan. Mm-hmm. I mean, if that's not, yes, that's about drafting great then for a period. That's about great, but that's also development and coaching there kind of as a centerpiece of that too. to be able to get that talent turned around that fast. The draft is a part of it, or the adding that talent's a part of it with the free agency, but you got to wait a little bit of time when you're going to go only that route versus already having some of it, developed or sort of baked in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'd put both those guys above Vrabel, though. I would Shanahan and McDonald, and I think you can construct a pretty decent argument for even a guy like Liam Cohen or Ben Johnson above Mike Vrabel. And I know the reason why Vrabel got it is because New England won 4 games last year, and this year they won 14. I get it, but I don't know if that's a good enough reason. Like, what is Vrabel's strength as a coach? His ability to put together a great staff. I think that's the main appeal of Vrabel.
I think he knows defense pretty well. I mean, that's the part where that stands out to me, is that this is not a great Patriot defense he inherited, and the Titans, he put together really good defenses there as well, and got those guys oftentimes playing above their talent, because their front office didn't exactly, if you think about it, Harold Landry, Jeffrey Simmons was the best player, had maybe Kevin Byard for a while, but like, he is a very good defensive. He's not as, I don't think he's as smart as Mike. I don't think he's I think you're still right about the fact that there's definitely an edge in this game from Mike, but that's more about the brilliance to me of Mike than less about Vrabel falling short. It's just, this is why when you interviewed both of them from a John Schneider perspective a couple of years ago, you went with Mike you went with, McDonald instead of Vrabel, because that was probably something that was standing out to Schneider as well, as like, this guy's pretty smart, but this guy's like a freaking genius.
Yeah. And I think that I think we're all pretty happy with that. I think that Vrabel, maybe he would have put together a better staff initially. Maybe he wouldn't have hired Ryan Grubb. But in the long run, I think it's worked out really well. And I would not trade McDonald for anybody right now. And that's no knock to, a guy like Ben Johnson, who's doing a great job. That's no knock to some other guys we could have hired during that cycle. But I'm very happy with the way things have worked out.
He interconnects all 3 phases of the game in a way that he makes it look easy, but that's very hard to do, isn't it, Brendan? Every coach talks about it. It's the vision of everyone. They will all want to do it, but do you actually do it, right? Do you actually interconnect those parts in that way to where you can feel that really playing as a team, rather than, well, we need this phase to carry that phase and this phase to get by?
Yeah. No one else is going to do that, I don't think. And the thing about McDonald is we know that he's going to continually evolve. And one thing that a lot of people said coming out of the Super Bowl on Sunday was he had blitzes in that game that he had not shown all year. He did things in that game that he had not shown through 19 games before it. And we didn't blitz a lot in that game, but every time we blitzed, it felt like it worked. Like, I think our blitz rate was 13%. It was very low. But every time we blitzed, it got home.
Yeah, he definitely, there was also a diametrical difference between how many he ran the second half, I think, versus the first half, where he was really, I think, a little bit more willing to even get up, probably in that 35% range in that first half. I can't say for sure. Maybe it might have been a little bit lower than that, but still above. Because they got a little conservative, of course, the back half of the game. We got the lead. You don't need to, send as much at the blitz. But Brendan, I think that Mike talked about this in 710 about 5 weeks ago when he was asked about the blitzes, and he's like, I'd really planned coming into this year to run a lot more stuff. And I think Witherspoon was going to be one of the centerpieces of that, quite frankly, where, he was going to be one of the guys they were going to use heavily in that way, especially on those corner blitzes from like condensed splits, where it's like, that's sometimes an auto blitz as we've seen. And that's just and I think he's been sitting in this with this, like, burning a hole in this wall. It kind of, I know he can do this, and we haven't had to call on it because I can trust the front 4, but man, I got 2 weeks to prepare and get all of the little details of this play perfect, right? Get all of the spacing perfect. And every guy knows that when I call this, it's going to be just run to the T. And he finally brought it out, but I think he's been sitting in this with his bag since training camp.
Right. And to me, that is the main argument that you can make for this team being better equipped to repeat than the LOB team. You have a coach that is going to keep changing the way he does things and evolving just because he knows it's what you have to do. Because, Pete Carroll kept things relatively simple on his defense for most of his time here. He didn't really adjust things that much. And eventually other teams caught up. And, a lot of people talk about how Sean McVay was the guy that solved the Pete Carroll defense. But even going back to 2014, teams were starting to kind of sort of figure it out. Everyone, well, I don't know. I don't want to say everyone, but a lot of people remember the Phillip Rivers game in week 2 of 2014, where you started to kind of see how to attack this Seattle defense with the LOB. And as time went on, more and more teams, I think, started to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, it was just as it was really as offenses were starting to advance pre and post snap motion and flood zone concepts and all of the things that they're building into basically it was an offense in a lot of ways created to how to sort of beat the old LOB defense and the cover three, especially within that. And so, things had to modernize a little bit, things always catch up. But I think that's also the cool part about Mike is he's not married to a scheme necessarily. He's more married to being willing to manipulate week in and week out his defense around what he needs to do, including, I think, look, you went to a lot of front four this year and didn't blitz a lot. I think that was just as much because he had so much strength on the front four to get home. He had the dogs up there. He had the depth of dogs up there to get home and get home consistently. So he just didn't feel like he had to do it. But I think he can absolutely adjust if he gets down the line and teams start, max protecting or something out of it. Like he'll find some different, flavors as well to come at you with that to the other side.
Like how would you solve the Mike Macdonald defense? I don't know if there's really an answer there because it changes a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were to ask, how do you solve the Pete Carroll defense? There are some relatively clear answers there, I think.
I agree. I think you've got to have a guy with supremely top level arm talent. He's got to have escapability in the pocket first and foremost. I don't think that there's certainly not the young quarterback that's just the young guy. I don't think that guy's taken this defense apart. No way, no how. And you're going to have the guy who's dropping some dimes throughout the course of the game. You saw the completions in this game, how hard there was. That one play over the middle on the mic'd up, they showed it really well, where there's like 5 Seahawks converging to the throw over the middle and like you have to fit it right into here to get us to even a completion in there. So you need that kind of guy that can work those different skill sets. He's going to probably have to be more of an advanced quarterback in this league. That's just the bare minimum you need walking in the door to have kind of, I think, a bit of a chance here with this defense. And then it is a little bit to your point on this, then becomes a little bit of it's almost like old Tecmo Bowl. I mean, rather than you really intelligently looking ahead at what you think tendency-wise Mike is doing, right? It's more of like, okay, we're going to try to guess offensively, they're defensively doing this on this play. And then it's like, oh, we got him or we didn't. And then, oh, we randomly hopefully got along or we didn't. I think it's going to have a bit of that feel because of how varied it is, and especially because how much it changes pre to post snap. And you could see that it was causing Drake May a hellacious amount of problems in this last game.
Yeah, so I know you said that one thing you wanted to talk about today was why this team is better positioned to repeat than the LOB team. I think that's the argument right there. You're never really going to be able to solve this defense the way that Carroll's defense kind of got solved. Because honestly, straight up, I think that LOB team otherwise may have been a little bit better positioned than this team at the time. We didn't know about how cliquey the roster was. We didn't know about some of the animosity. I don't think we really understood how much the egos were going to be a problem on that team until it started being a problem. So
that's a fair point.
I think that everything else would kind of point the other way, but it's all about that Mike Macdonald aspect. And that's a big, big piece of it. So I'm not here to discount that, but it is.
Well, to your point on that, what allowed Bill Belichick to thrive throughout his many years, having Tom Brady, sure, but they built up good, solid defenses, sometimes great, sometimes just very, very solid, especially as they became more offensively driven down the end of the line there with Patriots. But he was a guy that was willing to change. And I'm not just going to be 3-4. And sometimes I can go to a 4-3, and sometimes I can be blitz heavy, and sometimes I can draw out of that. And that's the type of style that will allow you to sustain in this league where everything's always constantly in a state of flux and evolving or devolving and going back to this is a strength or this is a weakness. I think that's what allows it to have that more of that time period, I think, for the success, to your point.
Yeah, I mean, the late era Patriots were basically running the spread for the most part. Like they straight up said, look, we don't have good offensive linemen. There's nothing we can do to get good offensive linemen. We're just going to let them play patty cake and go 5 wide every play. And think about what the Patriots were in the early 2000s, where all they did was run the ball. It's crazy how much that team changed the way they played over a period of time where they had the same quarterback and the same coach.
Because that's what you think if you think ideally, what would a really smart coach operate as, rather than them just being kind of married to this, here's my playbook, and you can see him clutching it like this. You have somebody that goes, yeah, this is my playbook, but we're always expanding it. We're always going to continue to add on top of it. We're going to put new wrinkles in. We're going to make certain adjustments off stuff that isn't no longer working. And I'm going to also play to my roster strength. Like, what do I have? Who do I got? Who can do what best? What position do they get put in best? Rather than I've got to have these like puzzle pieces I have to jam in here, and then this piece has got to fit just like this, and then that piece has got to fit like that. I can work with a lot of different, talents. Like, Rick Woolen, look, he's freakishly talented, and he had a really solid run for the most part at the end of the year, minus a couple of playoff moments. And, that is a guy that I don't think is necessarily the pure kind of fit style to McDonald's defense, but he found a way to get him out there, get him working, and show him off to being at his best. I know he didn't have the interceptions of his rookie year, Brendan, but probably played his best ball really overall in that back half of that season. Again, minus a couple of plays in the playoffs.
Yeah. In terms of coverage, it was really kind of second to none. Like don't get it twisted, people. I know that we're all kind of mad at him right now because of some of the stuff that happened at the end of the year, but you are not replacing his cover skills easily. You're probably just not. Now, I still think we have to move on, but don't get it twisted. Woolen was a huge part of what this team did this season.
Indeed he was. And it was good to see him lock in that way through that back half like he did. But, that's also, I think, a guy just doesn't quite. Everybody wants a freakish corner for sure, but I think, McDonald would certainly like to have a guy maybe a little more, interested at times in the run game and, getting off blocks and, there's some of that stuff, being locked in all the time, 100%, avoiding the taunting stuff, that kind of thing.
Right. So we do have a little bit of news during this stream.
Ooh.
So kind of, yeah, let's go ahead and break it. So earlier today, and you probably heard about this one, but Daniel Stern, did you hear about that one?
I did. Yes.
All right. So he is,
I loved him in Home Alone.
Oh boy. I just realized, wow. And he was just like, wasn't he in jail or something too?
Yeah. I think he was doing some naughty stuff. He did some naughty stuff, I think.
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. So we got him as a pass game strategist or coordinator, some title. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's like, do you remember in Casino how you had to change your job title at the casino every few years so that way your application would never get processed? I feel like it's like that sometimes. Yeah. I feel like that's what's going on with some of these titles, but he's here probably to help the team get a little bit more analytical with like fourth down stuff, if I had to guess, but pretty good. But we have another new hire. We are raiding the Raiders, the Ravens' old coaching staff from Harbaugh. Zachary Orr is our new inside linebacker coach. Zachary Orr, the man that Mike McDonald wanted as his DC when he came to Seattle 2 years ago, is now the inside linebacker coach.
And he was the DC last year with the Ravens, I think.
Yes, he was the DC last year with Baltimore.
So that's what Baltimore did in that situation, is to keep him from coming with Mike. They elevated him to DC. That was that whole thing at that time. And this was something that we had been hoping here with Mike, and having some of the connections he did, is that, eventually he can bring back some of his talent to build just that staff even stronger. This is a huge get. Don't know as much with what Stern's going to supply, other than I think you're probably, the indicators seem to be in-house here for the offensive coordinator job. If that's going to be the case, you've lost not only Kubiak, but maybe you're an elevating here and that guy slides into that guy's spot. That makes a lot of sense. But Orr's fantastic because he's worked with Mike before. He's tasted down actually DC experience of calling plays. And now you get an extra, just more brain power added on into the mix here to help this thing out. And I think those guys got some great chemistry based on what we heard about their relationship and how they work together.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say he did a great job in Baltimore as the play caller. Most Ravens fans seem to want to run him out of town by the end. So this might be kind of the role that he's destined to have, either a positional coach or a DC that doesn't call plays. So maybe this is kind of where he caps out as a coach, and that means you don't have to worry about losing him, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, like, my standpoint too is a little bit of this is that I thought through a lot of this year, think about it with this Ravens defense just really quickly. I mean, like, we come back to, I know they've been good, historically, but I think Travis Jones was out a lot of the year. Nnamdi Madubuike was out from week 2 or 3. He was out of that defense.
He basically missed the whole season.
Right. So then you've got Teddy Buchanan, who's having to play as a rookie for them out of California because Trent Simpson never really developed well enough to fill in for the guy that they lost to Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency a couple of years ago.
Queen. Yeah.
Queen. I know Kyle Hamilton was injured for a couple of games this year as well on that side of it. It's just, I mean, they had Draymond Jones starting. David Ajabo, the Michigan kid, never seems to have come back from that Achilles thing that he had on the pro day. And so I would look at that defense too and say, like, yeah, he didn't do a great job, but that also was a defense that was not at its strongest as it was even a couple of years ago under McDonald, as far as from a, talent, health standpoint, take both of them. And he may be just like you just said, maybe better as a positional coach than actually as a DC.
Yeah, or a DC that doesn't call plays. Maybe he's a guy who you want to have
there we go.
For the midweek game planning. Because that's really what you do if you're a DC under McDonald. You're helping with the midweek game plan.
Or you're seeing something in game. Like Mike can regard, like he knows you, he trusts your eyes on seeing something like this and then getting that info to him as he makes the call. Like, hey, they're running the stack formation with the drag over and over, just blitz the guy off and cover the drag on the other side, some weird like that. Yeah. You could also see him kind of maybe a guy to kind of catch that stuff too.
Right. And if Aiden Dirty becomes a head coach next year, or is probably just going to bump up to that DC job. So it's worth thinking about.
It is indeed. Yeah. No, that's it's definitely nice having that brought in here and adding a little bit. Lord knows we're going to have plenty taken out. So more injected in would be nice here as well.
Yeah, maybe not as much as we thought. Carl Scott has announced that he intends to stay. So looks like we're keeping him. And McDonald said earlier today that the expectation is every coach that is under contract is going to stay at this point. Now, that doesn't mean they all will. But at the same time, I mean, who's left that's definitely going to get an outside job? At this point, I don't know.
Did Carl look at that Arizona job and he's just like...
Yeah, they're keeping the old guy from under Gannon, which is really weird to me. I feel like when you're firing the head coach, you should just refresh the entire staff if you can.
It's a choice. You know what I mean? Like, okay, your new head coach comes in, he doesn't get a pick as defensive coordinator. That's it's kind of like the Cardinals having a head coach come in, he doesn't get to pick his quarterback. You're going to work with this guy. Okay.
Yeah. I actually
like it.
I like the head coach the Cardinals hired too. I actually think that's a good hire for them, but they're already messing it up maybe.
Maybe so. And I don't mind either. I mean, it's as good as what they were going to be able to grab out there. Let's face it, they're not getting some grade A hire. They're not going to get a Harbaugh to go there. Either one.
Right. One other note from this morning. You probably saw this before the stream started because I saw this before we started, but the Raiders were trying to interview Justin Outen for their run game coordinator job, and we told Clint Kubiak to F off. Mm-hmm. So we blocked it, and presumably, now I don't want to guarantee anything. There's no way I can, but that may indicate that we're planning on making Outen the offensive coordinator. Or
I think it's
the Daniel Stern thing could indicate that Jake Peetz is going to get it because now we have a new passing game coordinator.
Yeah, it's hard to say on that. Like you say, I mean, the contractual thing was something Mike McDonald talked about last week on 710 when he was asked about it. It's like, well, who's under contract? It's like, I'm not just letting him just take whatever he's going to come up with a buffet and be like, I want that one. I want this one. I'm going to take this one. And so it does seem like they're going to hold him a little bit to that. I do think that you're right about, though, that I think this is more of an indicator that Outen is the guy. That was also a guy that they didn't have made available for the only coach that they didn't have made available for the media sessions during the Super Bowl. So there was something as well. I think there's some breadcrumbs on this leading us down the trail in a given direction. And if he is elevated, that makes even as much more sense too. You're having, I know he's not a run game coordinator, but you can kind of parse probably the rollout, or you can have one guy transition to Outen's role and then they jump into his role, Pete's role. So it can get a little bit of intermixture going on there. They're titles, right? But these guys are all really, doing, I think, a lot of outside the positional coaches, of course, at this kind of level of it. They're doing, some similar stuff and how they're working around each other. So I think it does indicate that. It may also mean, though, that Andrew Janoku might be the guy then going to the Raiders because Seattle, I don't know if they would block him as much from preventing him from an OC job if he doesn't get it here.
Yeah. Can you block when it's a promotion? I feel like in that circumstance, you shouldn't be able to block. I don't know if you can.
I'm a little hazy on the rules on this one, but I want to say not as well. That it's one that does not allow you to do that. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it would seem to, yeah, I would think that's the case there. But again, they're under contract thing too. Is we'll see how they pull this with us a little bit. And they did allow him to take already. They were trying to interview our receivers coach there, so Coobs is trying to kind of dip his toes into the water.
Yeah. And I'm fine if he takes Frisman. I'm fine if he takes Janako. I'm cool with that. Just stay away from Shaheed, please. I need that guy back for 2026. Stay away from Shaheed.
We'll see, man. He's been traveling with Coobs the last two spots, and Shaheed was really solid for us. He was great for us as a returner, certainly, and he was solid for us as a receiver. But does the decision come down to a Cooper Kupp or a Shaheed at this point? I don't. With Torrey Horton already on the roster, how does that affect that decision? And thinking about that a little bit, maybe. I don't know. It'll be an interesting thing. I also wonder what Shaheed's going to get on the open market, because I can't tell if it's going to be down into where it probably should be, which is more closer to that 10 to 12 million mark, or if it's going to be more pushing up into the 16 to 19 million mark.
Yeah, I just feel like his value to this offense and what he forces defenses to do is worth a lot. So I just want to keep that guy around.
I definitely want to make it a priority, man. Don't get me wrong on that. But are you wanting to keep him around at 19 million per year?
I'm hoping it doesn't get up quite that high, but I'm not really far off from where I am on him. I think it's going to be like 16, and I'm fine with that. I'm totally
be
cool
costly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. I'm not necessarily adverse to it. I just don't want to necessarily see it come at the price of Kupp, because I think with Kupp, a lot of people are going to get concentrated a bit on the stats with him, and not as much of the target share of the audience of the offense going to JSN, how much you're on the ball, and as well as what he brings off the field to this team, which I think is more than worth every red nickel of his contract.
Well, I saw an article yesterday. Apparently, actually a significant part of his contract becomes guaranteed if he's still on the team after today.
Oh,
so, to the best of my knowledge, if he is still on the team tomorrow morning, then we've kind of committed to him. And also implied is that he's committed to not retiring, unless he wants to, play a little bit of a game this offseason where we try to get the money back and he maybe tries to keep it or something like that. And I don't know. I don't get the sense any of these guys are retiring. I know we talked about it before the Super Bowl that a lot of these guys may retire if we win. I'm not getting the sense that anybody's going to be going away. It feels like they want to try to defend the title.
People felt, I don't know if you saw, it was just a lot of the way guys were talking after the game. Nicky Minwari, when he was interviewing his locker room, a couple other guys, when they were speaking about it, were sort of lamenting the fact that they weren't going to get a chance to go back to practice, and that this is over with now, and they're still really hungry to get back. They wouldn't they wouldn't mind getting back at it. Mike McDonald talked about it. Like, man, it just sucks this has to end because it's been so much fun, rather than being like it's a grind and we're almost spent and we're emotionally tapped out. We don't got anything left in the tank. That kind of feeling that you can get from teams sometimes at the end of the year. Nothing even close to it. And Leonard Williams confirmed. Well, that was a little bit of a wonder with him on that one, as if he was going to maybe think about it. And it does seem like these guys are all returning. Kupp said that they were already, I think he already said they're already behind for OTAs. I think he was jokingly saying the other day. So I think that's great. That's absolutely great. Then this is a guy you can't concentrate on the stats with him merely. And he was efficient in his stats. Look, he led you in yards in the Super Bowl, came up big. Mm-hmm. That catch in the first quarter down the line and able to reel that thing in. He's a guy that still has a lot left in the tank, Brendan. I don't think he's done. Maybe he's not the Cooper Kupp of vintage Kupp, but I think the way people talked about him this year as being washed, and that got brought up so much as a narrative. And I just thought it was one that was not fitting to what I saw from on the tape. Is there some moments where you're not getting a huge amount of separation? Maybe, but it was still creating separation. He's still making the tough catches, those contact catches like he can, with the guy racking him as he's making the grab. And he will help this team in the future big time.
Yeah, also getting a partial guarantee today is Jaron Reed. So if he is still on the team tomorrow morning, probably kind of committed to him, and he's kind of committed to us. So that's the other interesting one. There were others like DeMarcus Lawrence, Sam Darnold, Michael Dixon, but there wasn't as much of a question about those guys.
You might have the best front four defensive tackles in NFL history next year if Riley Mills can continue to tap upon what he flashed in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, it's those guys and Jaron coming back, that you're just going to have a just wonderful mix of being able to rotate these bodies through and not miss a beat potentially, which is just going to be fantastic.
Hmm. Yeah. And, as I think about it, if I was on a team that won a championship like that, I'd want to come back and defend it. I would not just hang it up at that point.
Especially with Jaron, and that Jaron has been, I thought he was revitalized this year. I think he was a really good player for you, and he came out there and he was all around good. I thought he's brought up a lot of his run defense game that's at times in the past been put in the back seat for the chance to be more of a pass rusher. And I didn't think that was the case with him. I was really impressed by how he played this year, and then just another guy that's just one of those stalwart leaders in the locker room that's just a rock and you can rely upon.
Yeah, he's clearly a guy they look to for leadership stuff. So even though I think if you were just looking at on the field stuff, maybe he's overpaid, you also have a lot of money. It's not that big a deal if you're overpaying a player or two by a little bit right now. Like I don't think Cooper Kupp is worth $17.5 million. I don't. But if you throw in some of the off the field stuff and the fact that you're trying to defend a title, I don't think it's a big deal to overpay a player by a little bit. It's like not the end of the world, especially because in 2027, you've got a painless out with Cooper Kupp, and it's kind of a no-brainer at that point. So just kick the can. It's fine.
Well, that's what you touch upon that I think, and again, too, with Kupp, I think that there's a little more value that goes beyond just looking at purely his numbers and what he brings to the table, and I think as well, Brendan, I think if you had your 25th in passing attempts and then half of your passing attempts go to Jackson Smith-Njigba. Like you gotta, like, whenever you're looking at any guy on this roster, that's got to be taken into a big account, and that there's just so little of the pie left for any of those guys to get any kind of production. And so it really comes down to, okay, when they are getting production, are they doing the most with it? Do you see him dropping passes right and left, or that he's not able to make that tough catch he once could, or that he hasn't got some yak left in him that he showed off a couple different? No, quite the opposite. I think you touched on a good point as well. You're well situated with this cap this year to go out there and JSN gets his payday and Witherspoon gets paid, and you get a guy there, and you're able to really maximize this cap, the ultimate, maybe even throw a few void years down the line. And then you get into next year and you're out from under these contracts more cleaner. Whereas if you had done a Kupp right now or Jaron Reed right now, okay, you technically save money, but now we're starting the dead money game too. When we don't really have to, when we're now creating a hole voluntarily that doesn't need to be created, that you don't know if you can fill.
Right. And by the way, I know I've gotten a lot of comments over the last several days that like all our cap space is going to disappear when we extend JSN and Witherspoon. No, that's not how it works. In fact, I don't even think our 2026 cap space will be affected at all by those extensions because they're extensions on the end of the current deal. And we can still use the 5th-year option and then extend on the back end of the 5th-year option. So there's plenty of flexibility here. Don't worry about that.
What was Cross's 5th-year option price? Do you remember?
It was, I can't remember. It was like 17, 18 million a year or something for yeah, for the year. Right.
So that was for this upcoming 2026, right? 17 million about. Let's give or take. But you're in the right. This is to your point you're just talking about. So to your point on this, and for those folks that are Devin Witherspoon and JSN is going to destroy our cap next year. Let's go back to 20. Just quick point on this. Charles Cross had a 5th-year option, about $16 million or so, give or take. Well, what's Charles Cross's cap hit for 2026 right now?
It's
10.8.
Yeah. You shave it down, if anything, because you get to push all that money out.
Yeah. Now it's a tiny bit different because Cross was hitting into his 5th. He was heading through that 4th year, which these guys are in their 3rd year. So there's going to be a little bit of counterbalance. But to your point on this, even with that little bit of counterbalance, them being 3 years and him being the 4th year, it still equalizes out to about even in how you can do it, because you can lower down the base down to the vet minimum, down to the bare minimum, like you did with Charles Cross. Cross is on a $1.69 million base salary for 2026. And you can do the same thing with JSN and the same thing with Witherspoon. And so then it all just becomes about the bonuses and how they hit. And you can put the guarantees down the line on that, so the player still gets his money no matter what. So and I think with guys like Witherspoon and JSN, they're not going to be as worried, Brendan. I know in the past there's been those 3-year deals. These would strike me as guys that you'll be okay with going to 4-year deals with how young and how it's lessened the risk on the whole, like, oh, they're going to be running into a Cliff Averill, Cam Chancellor situation because they won't be close to those guys' age when they have their neck injuries or something like that, akin to that you might be worried about by giving out that 4th year.
Yeah. And the only thing I can think of would be that Jody doesn't want to do it because she's about to sell and she doesn't want to put all the money into escrow on massive contracts. That's the only thing I can think of, but maybe they can work something out there to where maybe
I think it
she
gets
can
easier
pass
to
that on to the next owner.
I think you're right there. Number one, I think you can fully just say, look, if they're already in owner negotiations, for instance, if they're talking with somebody and they're like, all right, we got to do these contracts, right? It's a no brainer. That goes down that way. I also think coming off a Super Bowl, probably a lot easier case if she's right. Just sign the check, just sign them. Just, you know what I mean? Like you get an owner in that space. If there's places and times when owners get like the Niners did last year with the tightening the belt strap and being like, cut them, cut them, cut them. You guys aren't getting a Super Bowl. I'm not spending all this money if you're going to not give me a Super Bowl, right? Like that's one end of the scale. The other end of the scale, when you actually go get that bowl, the owner's just like, yeah, just go ahead. Whatever you need to do, John, just do it.
Right. Okay. So with all that being said, I know that you have been a big advocate for going outside the current staff to get the offensive coordinator. So I know all this Justin Outen, Jake Peets stuff is not necessarily your favorite, but do you have a preference of the guys on staff? Like you could throw Mac Brown in there. You could throw maybe a couple other guys that are on the staff. What do you want from that?
It kind of defaults back to me. Because I'm an information guy. And if I'm not having the information, I don't want to try to make an assessment sight unseen. And so I don't know much. I got Outen with a couple of games that he OC'd. That sample size, it's Denver. It's the end of the year. I can't take too much away from that. And none of these guys have any track record. And that was the thing that I was explicitly saying that I wanted to see with the next coordinator. So I'm not mad about it, but I also am not in a position to be able to really be able to predict or tell anything about these guys in particular who would be better past defaulting back into trusting in Mike McDonald to make the right decision here, and that he's done a pretty good job in building this staff throughout his 2 years.
Yeah, we just have to hope. And look, I'm with you. I wanted somebody with, at the very least, somebody from the outside, so it would kind of feel like that we had really gone through our paces to find somebody. And I did want somebody with prior experience. I'm not saying that the guys we get from inside can't be good, but it is a mystery box. And I don't know if now is the time to open a mystery box. We've got a chance to repeat in 2026. It would be really, really awful if we're sitting here in 11 months and we're like, we had a team that could have won the Super Bowl again, and it didn't happen because we got the wrong OC, or the OC that was just promoted a little too early. Like what happened to Philly? Philly might be celebrating a repeat championship right now if they had gotten somebody better than Kevin Patullo. And I looked it up. Kevin Patullo was on that staff for 4 seasons before getting the OC job. He worked under Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore. So just because you work underneath good coordinators and play callers doesn't mean you yourself are going to become one.
Mm-hmm. Amen. I agree, of course, with everything you just said. I think that there's not any other parts of this team that's a mystery box next year. None. You don't have questions about gaping loss from this side of the ball, or free agent here, or this injury is always going to be a concern. That's certainly out there for every team, especially teams played this deep in the season. But that's it. You know what you're bringing back. You've got the $73 million in the reservoir. You have the coaching on the defensive side of the ball more than everything is set up all across the board without any question marks whatsoever. This becomes the one. And that it may be satisfied and Mike make the great hire and he's just fantastic. I'm open to it. I'm not going to be negative at just shooting out the gate, but I think there's a really lot of solid reason behind wanting a guy that's been there and done that. He gets to take over a machine with that background when you go and find that guy versus the guy that's got to learn the ropes. Oh, couldn't do that. Oh, shouldn't have done that. Okay, I learned from that. I will never do that thing ever again. That was definitely me going sideways. We got to stay back over here. Now you got to go through all those ups and downs of that. And hopefully it can be just all ups, but it is a risk, and a risk that you didn't have to necessarily take.
Right. Like even if you're going to get somebody with no play calling experience, I would feel a little bit better if it was from the outside because it implies you cast a wide net. Right now, I'm sorry, it feels like we're not casting a wide net. It feels like we're casting a very narrow net just inside the current staff. And maybe that'll change in the coming weeks. But what about somebody like a Wes Phillips, who was the offensive coordinator with Sam Darnold in Minnesota 2 years ago when he broke out? Like somebody like that. I know he hasn't called plays before, but he's done good things and he has that good relationship with Darnold. And, you cut Wes Phillips's veins open and a bunch of little footballs are going to pour out. That guy, maybe more than anyone ever, has football in his blood.
Amen, man. Amen. I think this, you know, again, exactly where I'm in alignment on this, and that I just think that there's a lot of good, solid reasons behind why you want to look out. And again, we've had a pretty rich history recently, both offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball, of looking at guys that were untested or looking at guys that were just in house for our hires, for these kind of hires, and not finding a lot of success on the back of that. Yeah, you got the Dan Quinn way back in the day, but since Dan Quinn, there's been pretty good amount of failure rate on doing this. And I think when you look across the NFL as well, there's a pretty good amount of failure rate there. But again, I'll trust in Mike overall on this. I don't want to seem too negative on this, and that I don't think that there's a possibility this can absolutely work out too. And maybe they've really seen something in this guy that's got them going, all right, you know, he's got the stuff.
Right. And we got to get the right guy here too, because I don't think this offense has an overwhelming amount of talent. This is not some all-star group that is just going to be able to go produce no matter who the OC is. I think they need the right OC, or else the production goes way, 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 way down.
Yeah, I think I do think it's a team that should be with its talent. I mean, we might look a little bit differently on that one, because I think with you bringing out Zabel year 2 and the offensive line, all 5 starters returned, you're going to bring back all your receivers probably as long as Shaheed comes back in. Walker is going to be back in the flux, and then you get Darnold in year 2 with these guys. I mean, he's got now year 2 of him with JSN and having a whole second season of practice reps, and Kupp with the whole second season, and the way that those guys can get onto that same page that's hard to achieve in the quick. And sometimes takes a little bit long to get all of that, like, hey, those guys are like, you know, psychically on that page. They can just look over themselves and like know a route adjustment on the fly, and that guy's going to know it too as far as that goes. So I think there's a lot of just general growth you'll get from the internal house on talent and the chemistry factor of this that allows for you to have a solid floor here, Brendan. But it doesn't mean that it isn't still eventually down the line of preventative factors. You get in the playoffs and, you know, get into where it's like you need that, like to your point, having that top end OC that's really on his game to the utmost, you know, really helped us this year. And could, you know, that Rams game, for instance, when you need your offense to really cook it up there, you know, does he call his best game of the year at that time? You know, and so it's a valid point.
Yeah, and to me, we have a perfect example right in front of us with Philly. Philly may have repeated if they had gotten a good OC, but they promoted in-house, and it was a disaster.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely. And it's a big, huge nation with a lot of offensive-minded head coaches, a lot of OCs out there that have called plays. You know, you want to make sure you're trying to find the best and the brightest. That's what led you to Mike McDonald after a while. You know, you went through all those head coaches, you know, and that's, you know, OCs. We did a lot of interviewing of OCs, and both the 2 different times we tried to find those guys. So I like that process better when you really feel like you've really rattled every tree and tried to find whatever you could, the best of the best. And really had a chance to really, you know, go through a lot of guys. I like that better than this, but this, you know, I could see where they're at with it. It's late, right. You know.
Yeah, it is. Like a few weeks ago, maybe we go after Mike McDaniel and everything's just free and easy.
Hunky dory. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sean, thank you for the $4.99 question about Reek leaving. A lot of Marlon Humphrey talk. I think his athleticism fell off a cliff this year, and his ego/pod would be a distraction. How about you? Yeah, to my knowledge, Humphrey has not been good for a little while. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I feel like he has not been very good for some time.
Yeah, I was trying to right now check out if I could where he was, where he had been at. It's not popping up for me here, but yes, he did have a bad year as far as for many. He did pick off Drake May, I'll say that. Mm-hmm. So there is that at least. But yes, he was 49.9, wasn't well graded this year. As far as that goes, I'm looking a little bit of where he's been at recent history wise, just to kind of see if it's been this bad throughout. I think injuries play a little bit of factor into it.
Yeah, it would have to be.
But he was at the parade.
Very cheap. Yeah, I know he was at the parade. Some people got a little too. Some people took that a little too seriously for me, but I don't know. It feels like you're holding a bag on it, Jair Alexander style.
So. I think he's got a little more than Jair does. I think he's going to probably get to your point that about a similar contract to what Jair got this year with Baltimore. But okay, he does have a less than stellar year as far as out there in coverage this year. Still really good as a run defender, which is going to still appeal to Mike. 2024, he had an 81 grade. That's a top 10 rated cornerback just a year ago. So, you know, he is a guy that came into the league in 2027. He's still only 29 years old. He is at that place where 31, 32 is when they're going to be done by, and maybe you only get one more year out of him. but he is a 6-foot guy, so he gives you some size out there that you lose with a Riq Woolen. I think him coming to the parade's kind of a tell, Brendan. I do. Him coming out here and hanging out with this coach at this parade, I think, is a tell that they're going to have him in here. And the word on the street is the Ravens are releasing him. So this is already kind of, common knowledge a little bit, I think, in certain respects. So yeah, didn't have necessarily best year, but we've seen football players sometimes have a bad year and come back, right? And especially when injury does come into play a little bit. And again, for $5-6 million, is that guy that comes in here to not the worst of ways to go, especially if you draft a guy in the second round too, one of those high floor guys in the second round. Now that looks okay, right? Like Humphrey, Witherspoon, Eamon, you get Brandon Cece, and then you get Nehemiah Pritchett coming back. Doesn't look too shabby at that point.
Yeah, I'd kind of get Kerry Williams vibes off of this one, I got to admit. But, you got to do something. And nothing you do is going to be perfect.
And we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. It's all about where his health is at or whatever. But I think I've liked him since he came out of Alabama. He's been a pretty good dog out there on the field. He gives you a complete corner as far as got a little size. He's a guy that can do man zone stuff. He's a good run defender. I think he could aid us, especially when there might not be a lot of grade A options out there for you at the cornerback position. I certainly would like to do that rather than paying 15, 16, 17 million per year for Riq.
Yeah. Do you think we're bringing back Job?
I think they're going to try, but I'm not so sure that Job isn't going to be able to get a decent contract himself out there. He's not going to probably make the 15, 16, but can he go out there and make 9, 10, maybe 8 or 9, 10? Brendan, you get that Super Bowl bump as a Super Bowl winner across the board with your free agents. It just happens. And those guys get a little bit overpaid and, props to them on it. And Job's earned the contract. Make no mistake about that. But I think you were more in like hoping you could bring him back on a 1-6, essentially the contract you're going to kind of bring probably Marlon in for. It's probably what you're hoping. Ideally, you could do Joe, but he's probably priced himself out of that stage of it.
Well, if it starts the flood of aging veterans who signed to the Seahawks to ring hunt for cheap, then, I'm not against that. Like, I got my eye on Khalil Mack, who I think still has a little bit left, maybe a lot left. And you get him for cheap. That edge room is looking pretty intimidating again.
And a guy who's just been playing in the Mike McDonald defense the last couple of years, or at least, last 2 years here.
With
the Chargers and
Minter, yeah.
Yeah, under Minter. So here's the beautiful part about this. You remember, Brendan, I talked about this, and you better not take my video ID on this because I'm going to do this. We can play the compensatory game this year because if Marlon gets released, now you sign him as a corner. Let's say you sign Kenneth Walker and you sign JSN and you sign Devin Witherspoon. And maybe you go make a trade out there to go add to a different position at the point in the stack. You don't have to maybe do as much at all in anything in free agency, and then you lose a Riq Woolen 15-6 for 15 or 16 million per year. Then you lose a Josh Jobe, let's say 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that territory. We've got I'm spacing out. We'll see. Right? Shahid's potentially a guy that you'd have to watch and what you could do there.
Maffei's going to get
Kobe
something.
Bryant.
Yeah, Maffei's going to get something too.
Maffei's going to get at least probably 7.
Yeah.
At least like 7 or 8. And then you've got Kobe Bryant in addition to it. So you got that collection could get you a pretty good compensatory package back in return. And like you just said, you're joking, but it's kind of serious. What's a better place to go hunt for a ring this next upcoming offseason than here? If you happen to be like a veteran that's still got something left in the tank, still hungry for a ring, and yet you've just been cut by your team. Because of course, cut players don't count in the compensatory system.
Right. So, I'm not against Humphrey. There's always a price. I think that every NFL player is worth something in this world. I just wouldn't be super optimistic about him getting back to his old form at this point.
And that's where it's come back to like DeMarcus Lawrence. You don't need him back to his old form. He's not an ancient player. You just need him to play solidly. Can he match up what Josh Jobe did this season? Yeah, he absolutely could do what Josh Jobe did this season and probably a little bit more. And that's what we saw with this defense. That can be more than, good enough. Riq was fine, but Riq was never starter. They always had him kind of mixing in and out of the field there with Jobe, and Jobe was kind of the main guy even down the stretch that they had running out there. And, he'll give up some catches. When Jobe didn't have a magical year, he was solid, but, he gave up his share here and there too. He got targeted times in certain games, but can he steer it enough? And certainly remember with this, having a pass rush here in Seattle for Humphrey versus the pass rush that he had there last year with the Ravens and no Matabuke and nobody really working off the edge, but maybe a Kyle Van Noy. Kind of a little bit different as well.
Yeah. I'm a little bit worried about our edge room, admittedly, this year as well, but that could be addressed pretty easily. I like I said, the Khalil Mack discount to chase a ring is the thing I really have my eye on right now, because he's going to turn 35, I think, and he's still really good, but he's got to be near his last chance if he wants to go for that ring. And I don't think he's getting it most other places he could sign.
Agreed. I think that's just the kind of player you're looking at, Brandon, out there, especially with the fluidity in the system already. I would see no issue going at it. It's about getting, if we saw this year, it's about stacking up a really, really good four. Guys that can, keep you fresh. I limit down your snaps a little bit. Have a couple games, maybe you got to run a little bit more snaps because we have an injury here or there. But I'm going to keep you fresh throughout the course of the year. And just when you're out there, go like a bat out of hell. And if you can do that for us, that's going to be plenty for our defense and what we need.
Mm-hmm. Chris, thank you for the $2. I think Jake made a video on the 2 points. Man. Yeah, I did see I didn't watch the video, but I saw that he posted a video, because I guess there was something earlier today about, did you see this?
No.
Okay.
I saw the Super Bowl, like Charbonnet picking up the Super Bowl trophy. Did you see that one?
No, I did see that one, but I guess the league has admitted that the rules analyst in the booth, what's his name? Terry McAuliffe?
McCauley, yeah, I can't pronounce it.
Apparently, he called down to the referees during the game when they were looking at that play to tell them how the rules should be interpreted, so they knew that it should be a conversion. And I guess some people are upset about that, like, because he's interfering with the game. I mean, my thing is, though, I mean, he called in to make sure they got the call right. He didn't call in because he put 10 grand on the Seahawks and he wanted the Seahawks to get the 2-point conversion. So I don't know. Some people were really upset about that today, but I know why, but I don't know where the leg to stand on supposedly comes from.
I maintain with the Rams on this one, the Ram fans, and I got a question for you in the end of this. I maintain with the Rams fan in this year. I've never quite seen so many Ram fans or fans, NFL fans in general, that complain after a game has concluded and after there was confirmation that the call was correct, who continued to complain when the call was the right one. It's one thing when the call is wrong. One thing when, like, you're a Saints player in the conference championship, Brendan, and you get clotheslined before the ball arrives and there's no defensive pass interference and it's a blatant penalty and you should be called for it. And now you're going to allow that other team to go to the Super Bowl on the back of that play. That's one thing as a fan to turn that little stinker over months on in afterwards or years in after that one. But it's another one when they get the call correct. That's just to your point. That's what we want is them. I don't care whether it's the Hawks playing or whoever's playing, Brendan. I want them to get the call right. That's what drives me crazy about the NFL so often is not that they're taking too long to get calls right, or it's that they're not getting it right. That's what pisses us off. So I don't understand. And I kind of wonder, is my question to you on the end of this, is this loss to Seattle, these two losses to Seattle at the end of this year, as tough as they were to this Rams team, is this going to put a little hitch in their giddy up, Brendan? Are we going to see this team is this going to be up in their head a little bit? Too much Puka out there. Is this going to maybe kind of stick with them a little too long? Like they aren't doing the Mike McDonald on to the next play?
It already has, right? I mean, after we beat them, they lost to the Falcons. They barely beat the Panthers in the playoffs. They barely beat the Bears. Like, it feels like it kind of already did. Like that was not a very good team down the stretch. Like the Rams before that, I'd say the first 3 months of the season looked like the best team in the league. For the rest of the season, they looked slightly above average. I mean, they looked better than that in the NFC Championship game, but the body of work after the second Seahawks-Rams game was mediocre. So I'd say it already has.
Yeah, that's I'm surprised you're still doing a video on that at this point. They got the raw call right. It was the correct call. Whether officials need somebody to call down or not, I don't care. Like that doesn't happen as well. Like we don't think that happens a variety of times in NFL games with as convoluted as these rules are. That's the purpose of having the guy up there in the booth in the first place, in my opinion, in so many ways, is, just more eyes, the better to get it right. That's a weird thing to complain about. It's the thing that drives us most crazy about the NFL is that getting calls wrong, they get one right. It's like, what the hell?
I mean, look, the play's a fluke. I'll admit that. Like the play was very lucky, very fluky. I'm not saying that Zach Charbonnet knew he was getting a 2-point conversion when he picked that ball up, but it doesn't matter. Like the greatest play in NFL history is a fluke. The Immaculate Reception. The Immaculate Reception is a massive fluke.
Yeah.
The Holy Roller, massive fluke.
100%.
Mhm.
Right? This is funny things happen. Balls bounce weird in this sport. It's an oblong ball that bounces very strangely, but it was the right call. And we'll see if this doesn't have some maybe cascading effects on them, throughout the offseason or what this does with them mentally wise. Cause it's, quite the opposite of us. On to the next play. It doesn't matter what's happened before. Let's get on to the next thing. Versus an organization sort of sitting there going, should have been us. We really, why'd they have to do that thing that was the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, they're not handling this season well. Like you had McVay talking about how lucky it was that we blew a coverage at the goal line when I don't even
fortuitous bust.
Yeah, or whatever it was he said. I can't remember. Fortuitous bust. And like even when I saw it live, I was like, I don't think that DeMarcus Lawrence made a mistake there. I think he realized something bad was about to happen and prevented it. I don't know where that came from.
Agreed. I thought the same thing in the live moment of it. And then DeMarcus ended up confirming it. It's like, and McVay's talking after this, like, this one really, really stung. This one really I just hope that you keep staying in those feelings, man. And like, let that be your driving force the offseason versus, what you can be doing to get better, right? Versus like, how would anybody, that just so wild that would have happened there. That just so random. It's like just bullet changing course mid-direction.
Yeah. And I think it really does. Like when I hear that comment, what I hear is they thought they were guaranteed to win. They didn't think we were very good. And there was no doubt in their mind they were going to win. And they were just so shocked. Like that's what it feels like. And I don't know why they would think that. Like they were the road team in that game. They were the team that had played 2 very, very close games the previous 2 weeks. We had just won by 5 touchdowns. Like I don't know where that comes from. And you've heard the stuff from like Jared Verse over the last few weeks. And I mean, we're hurting our rivals again, right? For the first time in a long time, we're really, really hurting our rivals. And that's how you know we're back. That's how you know we're there.
Just digging that hot poker into the belly. You know what I mean? Just digging it in. I think when you got Matt Stafford last year, and let's face it, Matt Stafford, I think probably played the best. He's played great throughout his career, but he's played great since he's come to the Rams. But that was the best season of Matt Stafford in his whole career. Yeah. And when you had a guy playing like Jordan-esque levels from the quarterback position for the sport, I mean, even Julian Love in the mic'd up in the Super Bowl is like, he's no Matt Stafford. He's going to sit back and he's not just going to throw it blind. Like, I think that also was just like, that gave them just like, we got the superhero quarterback. How can we go wrong? He can, bullets bounce off his chest and faster than speeding bullets and leap a building in a single bound. And that can't be beat, right? There's no possible way. But I get surprised by the loss. You can't sit there and turn over, I think, too much in this way, especially when a lot of it's like, that shouldn't have happened. That was so like you've been done dirty or something.
Yeah. And, they big reason why they lost is because their special teams sucked. And they knew their special teams sucked all year. It's like, to me, it's kind of like having a bad bullpen in baseball. That bad bullpen is going to cost you your season. Like the 86 Red Sox, great example of this. Great team, went to the World Series, and everyone talks about Bill Buckner, but they lost that series because their bullpen sucked, and they knew it all year, and they never fixed it. And if you were a rational Red Sox fan that year, I think that in the back of your mind, you knew we're not winning the World Series with this bullpen.
No. And I think that's a great comparison. And it's one where I think that you've seen almost little talk from them about that special teams and how much that did cost them this year. They'll lament this player. They'll lament that they didn't get over the top or whatever, but they're not talking a lot about that factor in it. Whereas you have the Seattle Seahawks to the other side of it, building up a special teams unit that's as good as in football as you'll find. They maybe had the best special teams year that we've seen in 15, 20 years. I mean, it's part of the research I'm going to do this offseason, Brendan, just taking a look at the special teams unit and just see where it historically kind of ranks across the board. You got a kicker that almost sets the record as far as points go. You got a punter as good as you'll find in the league in every fashion, from hang time to the inability to return the ball to inside the 20 to length and distance on top of it. And then you've got the punt, the kick return game on top of it all. Hell, you're scoring touchdowns on special teams, goodness sakes. And so it matters. And the Rams didn't put the onus into that. And quite frankly, you hear about the story of him letting go, McVay of letting go. I know we talked about already a little bit, but the guy that went on to Tennessee now, that was their special teams coach under the prior guy there, and he was one of the best in football. I think he still remains one of the best in football. And you let a good one go because of kind of a battling of egos that went on there a little bit. But he's not been. This is what happens when you sort of short sell the third phase of your football team.
Right. Corey, thank you for the 4.99. I'm glad I got to go on this journey with the both of you. It made this journey more special. This is the best team in Seahawks history. Go Hawks.
Thank
Well,
you,
it was
Corey.
a lot of
Well
fun.
said.
It was a lot of fun this year for both of us.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. It's been a great journey doing this with you guys in this community and being able to experience this all together rather than just individually. And I do agree with you, man. I think that this is the best team in Seahawks history. I think that this does surpass the 2013 season. I know that that had the historically great defense, and this defense is right on the edge of being at that spot. Maybe not quite there, but I just think that the cumulative of the team you put together was just that special.
Yeah, like the Super Bowl was not as in your face dominant from the defense. But I think if you look at the two Super Bowls, 48 and now 60, the defense was about equally dominant in both games, just that dominance got expressed in different ways. But like I
Yeah.
said, the Patriots did not cross the 40 until it was 19-0 in the fourth quarter. That's insane.
Well, and I maintain on this, Brendan, that if we didn't have an offense that was putting our defense on so many short fields through the first half of the schedule and allowing a lot of points to rack up on the back of that, where even if you're getting a stop, it's still a field goal, they would have had their points per game significantly lower and maybe even right in alignment or close to alignment with the Legion of Boom team, which has us having a bit of a different discussion here because that's the only driver you really got as far as you're matching that team as far as what pressure, sack rates, turnovers for the most part, I believe is pretty on the button with all of it across the line. DVOA, I think you got that defense beat. That would be the last marker that anybody could hold up to say, well, but this. And you did all that while playing in the toughest division in football, while playing in the toughest conference in football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even though this offense turned the ball over more than the 2013 offense, I think this offense is definitely better. I would go to war with this. I think this offense is more capable of putting up a big performance in a big moment like they did in the NFC Championship game. I don't think the 2013 offense could have won that game, where a game where the defense doesn't really show up and you just got to put everything on your quarterback. At that point, second year Russell Wilson, I don't think we're winning that game.
Agreed. I don't think you are either. And that's why I think this is a better team, better special teams unit across the board, and then I think it's a better offense overall, and that to me gives them the nod, in my opinion.
Feed me more. Thank you for the $2. Even when we win the Super Bowl, still no Brendan smile. That's not true. I did some stuff in my post game video right after the game. Like that's not true. I don't know. It doesn't look good on some people, man. Like, some people don't look good with facial hair and some people do. I don't look good with a smile, man.
I get it, man. Some people are smilers, some people aren't. It's all good. You're celebrating. I know you're enjoying it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So thank you, Feed Me More. The Lord's Disciple, thank you for the $2. If you were betting men, who's our next OC? I think, the smart money's out. And I'm not saying that he would be a favorite versus the field, but he's definitely the favorite if you were to list the candidates.
I think that's just the one that seems to stand out. It's a breadcrumb trail leading us here. It's very much a guessing game, but I think that there's some smoke here coming out the windows on this one. That leads me it's Houghton.
Yeah, and I mean, I looked at his resume. It's not bad or anything, but it's tough. I'm not going to know how to feel about it until I see him call some games, period.
So we're going to be a little nervous until we do. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, like when we hired Kubiak last year, both you and me were really happy with that. We both kind of knew what we were getting into. We knew what to expect. This is not going to be that. This is not going to be that in 2026 if it's Houghton.
We're just maintaining our consistency on our approach here, folks. It was the reason why we are hardlining on this approach right now in our outlook of it and what we'd want is because, to Brendan's point, we both were fully on board with wanting the Kubiak for the very reasons we've discussed as to why we wanted him. And so it's just staying in that same pocket as to what brought the success of Kubiak here, wanting to try to replicate it in the same way.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Feed me more. Thank you for the $2. Did you see on the broadcast Mike drawing plays? I don't think I saw this one, but I'm sure he was.
No, there's a great shot of hold on, Brendan. I've got it. It's on Twitter and I can kind of flash it so you can see it. I'll just show it to you on the camera. But there was a great shot on the telecast of you've got Mike there like drawing a play up, and he's got his guys right over his shoulder. There we go. So I'll show you here. So you can see you got Nicky Manwari over his shoulder there, and then you got Kobe Bryant looking right down at him at what he's drawing up there. Somebody put a caption on Twitter. They said, when a coach tells you to lock the F in, this is what he means, which I thought was a great little tagline there on thing. But it was, you can see in that picture. I mean, these guys it's hard to tell, but I mean, Kobe's eyes and Neiman Manwari over there, they are absolutely as focused as you possibly could ask a player to be in that moment right there. And it's a great shot. It's an absolute classic shot right there of just, I mean, it's old school football. It's Joe Montana come over to the sidelines with Bill Walsh and them going down to a knee and just picking through, and you can sense that connection between player and coach in that moment that's so intrinsic to the success of the team.
Yeah, you gotta love how 21-year-old Nicky Manwari takes this so seriously already. Like everything about him, there's nothing about him that feels like a 21-year-old football player.
No, he is wise beyond his years and amazing. A player like this that, you know, remember the old quote with him, Brendan, when we talked about him at draft time, and that was that scout quote that came out that said, you know, what was it? If you get him to buy in, he will burn the world down for you. And if he doesn't buy in, he will burn the world down. Kind of like, you can't fade the funk on him. You can't fake it with him. You can't BS him. You know, he's smart and he's going to know it. And getting a coach like Mike, that's the real deal, I think, got him to the great side of that. And you're right. It's amazing how, he was so ready to go and he got himself so on point. And this is what gets people draft time dreaming, Brendan, is that they don't just look at the impact of a guy that get 3 years down the line as he develops into his best form, but that you have the guy that can be the sensational impact right from the jump. And it's all of what we want to see, but it's also hard to find, right? It's always that year two that we usually have to wait for that jump to come. And he was great right out the jump. And this kid's going to be a centerpiece in this defense for years to come.
Yeah. And the thing is, I feel like he can get a lot better too. I really do feel like there's a big improvement he's going to make in the coming few years too, which is terrifying for the rest of the league.
Superstar potential. And I agree. I think he's got that in him. Absolutely. I think he's already a star, but I think you could certainly see him rise up that superstar status where we're talking about him having votes for defensive player of the year, if not even maybe pushing up that way. A guy like Charles Woodson with the Packers played in that kind of role with them and was able to win the DPOY. It's all just about get some sacks, get some interceptions, a pick six. You're there, along with some great coverage and run defense.
Sean, thank you for the $1.99. Mills and Horton are our secret weapons next year. It's going to be hard for Mills to get on the field a lot if we've got Big Cat, Murphy, and Reed in front of him, but he may force his way on, as it turns out.
It's not the worst of problems to have, man, is to have too many guys. And I think you're right. You may be seeing him still kind of have to operate from a little bit of a restriction there with that. I mean, maybe some of this is with Leonard Williams. You have him come back next year, but you're like, all right, Leonard, we're going to, maybe we half your snap count next year. And now Mills takes over half those snaps just to keep you as positively fresh. And really, you get to do that thing next year, Brendan, where you get to walk in and try to start to even right from the jump, have your eyes towards postseason play, where you go, how can we have this guy, this vet, at his healthiest for postseason play, keeping him fresh throughout the course of the year. Kind of like you did with the Walker-Charbonnet combo, but kind of like you did with the edge group too, bringing in DeMarcus Lawrence and having that four that could roll through. So I could see them doing that, and I think you're right. Horton, Mills are guys I expect to come forward. I think that this team's got a plan for Arroyo too. I don't think you took in the second round to not have him at one point or another, get into the mix on that. So I'd add him to that as well. Team's got a great young base of talent here to work off of, and guys that are still rising up behind that base of talent that we've already seen fully go.
Yeah. And I am definitely interested to see Horton. I was really relieved when they said that his injury was not considered chronic or something that would be long-term, because he obviously had some injury issues in college that held him back. So when he got hurt this year, it was like, oh no, here we go. But seems like we're going to be okay there. If Kupp comes back and if Horton comes back, knowing that we're probably going to be a run-first team, I guess at that point, you're probably letting Horton take some of Kupp's snaps, and that's how you're getting him on the field for the most part.
Maybe somewhat. Depends a little bit on what he does as a blocker, and he was pretty good as a blocker this year. So, one of the things with Kupp is you feature him a lot, even at times as the one wide receiver in those three tight end sets, because you want him out there for the blocking ability. I mean, he can go down there and pin an edge on a pin block and pull it off. And not every receiver on these roster in the NFL can go get that block laid. So it kind of depends a little bit on that. I think with Horton, he is more of an outside guy too. He is more of an X than he is a real, I think, slot guy. Not that he couldn't do it, but just that you could say his value is probably better aligned to be on the outside. But you can mix it. We saw this year that with receivers, even having that guy out there, he'll find his share of snaps out there, even as that sort of, not third, fourth wide receiver, and you're going to get an injury at one point or another too. You can probably anticipate that. And that's the smart team's roster build that up in such a way. Like that 4-stacker defensive tackle seems great, but you lose a Jaron Reed and now Mills becomes vital as that third guy behind Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams.
Right. And I mean, let's face it, we were very lucky to get 16 games from Cup this year. We'll be lucky next year if we can get 10. If we get 10 next year from Cup, I'm okay with that. But in order to be okay with that, you have to have guys who can play when he's not out there.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Jordan, thank you for the $5. It's strange opposing teams keep making excuses as to why they lose to us instead of owning it. Rams and Niners are still doing it. I don't see it as much from the Niners, I will admit. I think the Niners have, like you even had Shanahan talking about the Seahawks before the Super Bowl. I don't know if you saw this.
I did
on the broadcast, but he was like, I haven't scored a touchdown against them in the last 2 games, so I don't know why you're asking me.
That was a great quote on his part. That was awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know how they crack this defense with Brock Purdy, who, I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but a guy with that arm is not beating this defense if they have even, most of their desired personnel.
I agree with you. I think he's the type of quarterback that Mike can put into a bind for the most part, or it takes him just making sensational throws across the board throughout the course of the game to make it happen. And his arm talent just isn't there to do that. Say nothing of it being really challenged when there's elements or wet weather. He's gotten away pretty has from being able to go into that Pacific Northwest when it's been one of the rainstorms, and that watch his game when that happens, and watch what he's awful when it comes into the showers. So I haven't seen as much either with the Niners, making those excuses, but I think you're right about them as well, not having much inroads in the future of getting this done. They've got money to spend. They ate the bad money this year to be able to set himself up a little bit into doing some things this offseason, but they feel like they have a lot of work to do. I mean, does Trent Williams retire? Is he really coming back for another year? How good is he going to be? Can he stay healthy at 39 years old? I mean, by far the oldest left tackle in the sport. Outside of Dominic Pooney, what do you got on that offensive line that you feel dominant about, rather than just being a guy or an average kind of dude? And the receiving core now, Ayuk, they're trying to get out of that contract. Juwan Jennings is probably going to be gone this year. You're bringing back just basically Pearsall at that point. I mean, they're talking about trying to bring back Deebo Samuel, for gosh sakes.
Yeah.
It's. I agree with you. I don't think that there's a lot of hope there in that situation unless they get hyper aggressive. And frankly, I think that what I thought the Niners should have done a couple of years ago and what they didn't do, and I think they're paying the price now, is they didn't recognize their identity as being a run-first team in doing what Seattle did in building up their offensive line. Because look at the resources the Niners have put into their offensive line versus Seattle over the last 3 years. And it's you just laid on Trent Williams and hoped his old ass could get through a season. You did draft Pooney in the 3rd round, but what else? Right. But you're developing some later round guys. It's versus us with a 1st round pick here, a 1st round pick here, a 3rd round pick here. Here's a 4th round pick. I mean, here's another 3rd round pick you put the right guard in Haynes that still hasn't worked out, but you put that investment in. And that's where, to me, the Niners are paying the price. You're not a pass-happy team. That's not your identity. What you should be doing is attacking this light box of the Seahawks with downhill rushing attack and a dominant offensive line that can move men off the line. But you didn't do that. You sort of, with Shanahan, was like, my scheme will make them go. My scheme will make it happen. And that's the price I think that they're paying here.
Yeah, and I mean, they're talking about moving Christian McCaffrey to slot receiver because he's so beat up now. Like, that's how things are going. So I don't know how they get out of it.
How it started, how it's going. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Kittle probably won't be back until like November.
I can't see how. And even if he does, how close to vintage Kittle is he at that point? I mean, the guy's getting older and now coming off of an Achilles and then trying to come off it probably a little too early, knowing how he'll work and try to make it happen. We'll see.
Yeah, I think they're going to go for it because they're obligated to, because they've got so many old players and they're trying to do the one last ride thing. And not that he's old, but even a guy like Warner or Bosa, those guys are starting to get to the point where you're starting to see the end of the tunnel. So I think they're obligated to just hit the gas, but I don't know if they should.
Well, they're really in a weird middle of the road place because the Rams, you can see why they would hit the gas and that they can do some things to really be dangerous. But the Niners can hit the gas just to get up to like functional. I mean, your point, Bosa's coming off of his third ACL in his career, and Warner's now off back-to-back seasons that he's been injured. People don't remember that he was talking about how he had played with a crack in his foot all last season throughout the whole year. So, like, now that's 2 years of him being injured, along with Bosa being hyper-injured. Hell, your first-round pick's coming off an ACL. It's all a big question mark for the Niners. They can maybe do some moves to reinforce things, but it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And then they still have the substation that's just, breaking those bodies down.
Yeah, and listening to the players, they believe it. It seems like they actually think it's a thing. Like Kittle had the quote earlier this week that was like, hey, we've known about it for a long time and the team won't listen to us. It sounds like they actually think it's a problem.
Yeah, they're talking about the trees. Kittle's like, when I first got there was these big and mighty trees that were next to the substation, and they were big and they were green and they were healthy. And then slowly over time they became browned and rotted and died.
Yeah, it's too bad Kittle's on the Niners. He'd be my favorite player in the league if he wasn't on the Niners.
I know. He's been my favorite tight end in the league for quite a few years. I love how he plays the game, man.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Radu Turkan, thank you for the $1.99. Zach Orr to the Seahawks. Yep, we got him.
Great move. Him and Mike got the instant connection. You're going to lose talent out of this coaching staff probably on both sides of the ball over the next couple of years as people really want to, tap into the brain trust here. So adding where you can is huge. And Zach is a guy who's got grade A chemistry with Mike, knows the scheme upside and down. He'll be good.
Yeah, and I guess they're saying that Kirk Olivadotti might retire or step back from coaching for a year because he's the current inside linebacker coach, or he might go to Kubiak with the Raiders and join his staff. So,
that makes sense.
I mean, Olivadotti obviously did a pretty good job these last couple of years, but I can't say that he really stands out in my mind as a guy I really did not want to lose. So.
No, like you say, he's done good work with Knight and with. I also think Mike's position kind of seems to be inside linebacker, where he knows really or off ball linebacker. It seems to be his real bread and butter. So, I mean, he seems to be himself just kind of almost LB coach. But that's a great. I mean, maybe an upgrade even potentially with what bringing in Orr in that position.
Greener, thank you for the $5. Haven't donated in forever. Thanks for all the hard work covering this Super Bowl, y'all. Could Arroyo and Horton make you feel comfortable going cheap on wide receiver?
I think Brandon, you will have a little bit of different answers on this one.
I mean, when you're talking about going cheap at wide receiver, like, are
no
we
Shaheed.
talking? So you're
he's
saying
talking no Shaheed. I think that's what he's intimating.
And no Cup? Are you just going with Horton as
no,
receiver?
I think because you're keeping. I think you're keeping Cup and JSN, but I think he's talking rather than getting the full meal deal there. Now you gotta. And if I'm Green Earth, you can put in the chat if I'm misidentifying what you're intimating there. But I think that's what you're kind of intimating.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be okay. I just think that teams would really, really not fear us down the field the way they did after we got Shaheed, and it would be tough to replace that. I just think about the way defenses played us at the end of the year compared to early in the year. And I don't know how you replace Shaheed to recreate that effect this offseason. That's my issue. But in theory, you can survive, right? I mean, you can survive like we did early in the year. The offense was playing great when it was JSN, Cup, and Horton as your three receivers. So I'm not ruling anything out. I don't think it's bad. I just think that you're going to lose a lot of your ability to run the ball.
Yeah, I think that there's a potentiality of that occurring on this, Brendan. I think going into the season, Green Earth, I'm more okay with it probably than Brendan is because I do have a worry right now that Shaheed's going to command a salary that gets me uncomfortable. And even at $16 million, that gets me uncomfortable at that cost. I love what he brings as a kick and punt returner, but I'm not sure that the receiving quotient is necessarily giving you back the return on the bang for the buck on that one. And so I am okay with doing it. You are a run first team after all, and you're going to probably spend around $40 million per year with JSN, and then you're already got $18 million with Cooper Kupp. This comes down to like a load balance issue for how you want to build your team for how your philosophy is supposed to be executed. And that is if you're going to run the ball, you got to be able to run the ball. And passing is great, but it's not the centerpiece of what you're looking to necessarily do. So I think, Brendan, I'd also be open to, I think you mentioned it's hard to replace that. I think you're right. I think Arroyo and Horton can fill in a little bit on this, but I think I'd also be open to Brendan looking for a deal down the line. Like, why can't we go and replicate that same deal at the trade deadline with the team, and being willing to give up some assets to go get that guy that can be just the big play guy, especially if it's really just a run off the coverage kind of guy, more than you're looking for some full meal deal receiver, but a guy that can just pull the safety back off or keep you into a too high situation. I think you're just looking to find that. You can find that around the trade deadline if you're willing to be aggressive, which John's definitely shown he has.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I just don't think a guy like Shaheed becomes available all that often, and I don't want to. I don't want to bet on that. I don't want to get to the trade deadline, be ready to make a trade, and then there's no trade to make, and it's like, oh well, so much for that.
I get it. That's definitely the risk there at play for sure, 100%. And it is. I just, boy, that $16 million per year is ouch.
Yeah, and as for Arroyo, I'm sure he'll be better next year. I'm still not super high on him being anything more than a decent tight end 2, but there is some athleticism there that AJ Barner doesn't have. So that does change the offense a little bit if he's able to take a bigger role next year. I'm just not super high on him as a player right now. I don't think he'll ever be like some prolific pass catching tight end.
Yeah, we both still kind of find ourselves in the same place we were with Arroyo at the start of the year with this a little bit. I'm hopeful that there's more there. I am, but some of the issues that I'd seen on tape with him in college showed up this year again, and he had some nice big play flashes, and maybe he can work at the wide receiver position. And people are showing cut-ups online of him breaking open this season at times where he just wasn't the primary, and we'll see. He does have something more as far as athletically and more speed for sure than Barner does that he can give you. That's a different quotient. I think there's a place for him in this offense, even if he isn't a centerpiece. But like Brendan said, it's hard to quite fully rely on that at this point. Again, too, the big thing with Arroyo was maybe is the biggest kind of criticism coming out of college that we don't talk about. Injuries were an issue in college.
Oh, yeah.
Injuries were an issue in college even through his last season in the quote-unquote breakout year, and then injuries were a problem at the Senior Bowl, and then now injuries have been a problem in his rookie year. I often say these things don't tend to just suddenly become fixed now. If it's an issue that's in there inherently, it's in there inherently. So I hope not. I hope he can get more healthy and more improved here this next year, but like Brent said, it's hard to quite rely on that at this point.
Lord's Disciple, thank you for the $2. Really like Pritchett. I think he can be developed. I like Pritchett a lot too, but he may cap out as a backup. That would not shock me, and I'd be fine with that. But I don't know if I'd bet on him becoming like cornerback 2 on the outside along with Witherspoon.
Yeah, he had a really, really, really good year as far as coming back forward this season, I think in coverage especially, but the tackling and the run defense still is going to be a bit preventative for him ever ascending, I think, to becoming a starter. And that was always the issue with him coming out of Auburn as well. Even this year, first year out the gate, 151 snaps, he was 29 rated. He was 56 rated this last year, 58.7 in coverage, but again, run defense 48.1. 44.8. He's kind of 6'1", 180. He doesn't have a lot there to be able to go up and be a tackler. I think he'd be good in coverage. I think he'd be sticky in coverage at times, but that's where that'll be hard for him to ascend behind that. But still, solid player, solid for depth, maybe an occasional starter here and there, Lord's Disciple. That's not the worst thing for a guy that you took in the 5th round.
Yeah, I like his flexibility. That's one thing I liked about him. I thought he was good in zone and man in college, but I don't know. In this defense, in the McDonald defense, you got to be able to tackle at corner, and I don't know if he'll ever be able to do that.
It's definitely a part of his game that's got to develop, and we knew it the moment we drafted him, and then we watched a lot of tape on him and his running mate out there in Auburn, and that was the thing with both those two guys where it was sometimes rough. He always had the spirit that was willing. It was just sometimes just couldn't seal the deal on some of those tackles, and so got to get that cleaned up if you want to ascend to become a starter in this league.
Feed Me More, thank you for the 5. Albert Breer reported that Gus Bradley was offered more money and play calling duties with Arizona, but declined for less money with Tennessee. And that's Tennessee, by the way. Yeah, that's not the Chiefs, right? That's not.
Yeah, that's Eagles. No, you're right. You're right. It's like, no, I can't go to Tucson. I got to go to Albuquerque. I don't want to do that without one to that. So, AZ's got a reputational problem, don't they, Brendan?
Yeah. All the way up to the top, right? Because apparently, I don't know if you heard about this, but apparently the NFL has killed off the team report cards they do every offseason, where the players get to grade practice facilities and gyms and food. But I wonder if the Bidwells were behind that one because they always finished at the bottom of those.
I wouldn't surprise you they were driving force on it, that's for sure. But like, you ain't gonna hide this. The players know who's cheap and who's like, and as well, it's like a double-sided thing from an Arizona perspective because you have both, Bidwells, that organization, and then you got the other part of it. Now you got to go also walking in the NFC West and like this division, and like who wants to? I was kind of surprised LaFleur took the job, quite frankly, because it's like you think Kubiak's got a hard task. I mean, this is Tom Cruise Mission Impossible stuff right here.
Yeah, I guess the money and the prestige, just you can't beat it. That's all I can think of, right?
Yeah, I guess that's enough. Big paycheck rules out at the end of the day. But
yeah, my favorite Cardinals or cheap story ever was back in the Anquan Bolden days when they had Anquan Bolden. I think he mailed out a package from the facility one day, and then he checked his paycheck, and they actually took the cost of shipping out of his next paycheck.
I saw that. Yeah.
That was a great one. That was my favorite. Like not even for like a special teamer, for Anquan Bolden. You're doing that.
Wild. Mm-hmm. No, it's wild that they're that cheap and expect that they're going to be able to compete with the big boys operating like that. And that doesn't get around. It's going to get around, people will talk.
Yeah. I was streaming with my friend the other day, and he said he did calculations. The Cardinals could go undefeated for 14 straight seasons and still have a losing record historically.
It's a rough fan base, man. It's a rough. They're going through it out there. It's been a long time they've waited, and it's not looking like it's going to get bright anytime soon.
Yeah, somebody needs
Jacoby Brissett's going to be your quarterback next year.
Or they just decide to run Kyler out there just because he's stuck there because they can't get rid of him yet because of all the money.
I want to see Kyler run the West Coast offense, bro. I want to see that.
That'd be funny. It's kind of like, in basketball where you have a star player that is going to get traded, but you're still playing him and he's just kind of going through the motions, like Carmelo Anthony at the end with the Nuggets or Dwight Howard with the Magic at the end. It's just like, that would be really interesting to see. Like, we know we're going to cut you. We know you're garbage, but you're still getting paid. So go out there and play football.
Tank for Arch, man. And if Arch going to be the guy or for one of those quarterbacks that comes out next year, that'd be at least a pathway to maybe having some hope at that point.
Sean, Sean, thank you for the $1.99. More worried about Marlon's personality than product. He does have to kill the podcast. I agree with that. No podcast.
Oh, Humphrey's got the product. Yeah, I mean but that's where Mike knows him right and left. So you don't worry about it on that.
Mm-hmm. You can guest star on the Nick Ballore podcast a couple times. The Between Two Ferns. That's it.
Between Two Ferns.
No, Between Two Ballores. I guess his was called.
Ballores. That's right. Between Two Ballores.
Holy Hand Grenade. Thank you for the $5. Where does Mike McDonald rank among head coaches in the league after this Super Bowl win? Are we talking about like right at this exact moment, or?
Yeah, I think he probably means right now.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, I can't think of anyone I'd rather have.
There's no one I'd rather have as far as actual like resume and what you've fully proven on the board. You probably would at this point have to put like an Andy Reid and
Reid.
Sean McVay would have to be above him, and potentially even a Nick Sirianni who's gotten to a couple of Super Bowls himself there in a short period of time. I don't like to say that, but like we're talking about. He's only in year 2. So it's like that whole thing of what does longevity count versus insta impact? Longevity, insta impact. I mean, it's kind of, this differs person by person with that, but somewhere between 3, 4, 5 in that way.
Right. Like who else? Like, I don't think Vrabel's up there quite yet. I wouldn't say him. He hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, but I mean, Shanahan, despite not winning a Super Bowl, has done some incredible things. He might be in that top 5.
Yeah, I think he's definitely in the top. Yeah, he's right there. I'd put him still behind Mike because he hasn't won it, and he's had a couple of swings at it. And there's been times where it's he's the Falcons drop he had as an OC, and then the fact they had the lead, and he's kind of had some moments where it's like his approach in those games has kind of cost and bit them in the butt a little bit. But I put him just behind. He's still an upper echelon head coach. I think top 5 is right. Mike would probably 4 him 5. But there is nobody else in the league that I would put above. Nobody else has, earned the right to be in that spot.
Yeah. How many other active head coaches have won a Super Bowl in the last decade? Like it wasn't Todd Bowles, it was Bruce Arians when Tampa won.
Yeah. And you had a lot of Belichick's in there through those years that he won it. So, and
Doug Peterson, he's not in the league.
Doug Peterson out in the league. And what we had, wasn't it Kubiak with the Broncos in 16, I want to say.
Yeah.
So he's not in the league anymore either. So yeah, there's been few and far between. So he's he's risen up fast.
You got to go back to like Mike McCarthy. And I mean, that was 2 stops ago.
Yeah, I agree. It's been, I think 4 is pretty solid place for him. 4 is about right.
Martin Lawrence, thank you for the €5. If I was a Rams fan, I'd be more worried about the distinct lack of maturity being displayed by my players and coaches than a correctly ruled play.
I would agree with that. I think that there's a little bit of a, canary in the coal mine kind of thing with this. And I talked about this even after that second game, Brendan. We talked about this, that they're not taking this loss well. This is not one where it's like you're just going to not let it get stuck in your craw at all, and you'll just bounce onto your next game. You talked about how their performance was after that in those next couple of games, even through the playoffs, which I think was right. And I think that was because of that, because of how you reacted to that moment, that you weren't able to get your mentals in the right spot. And I agree. I think when you hear Puka constantly now just doing everything he can to take shots at Seattle right and left, and McVay kind of, crybabying about some of this stuff here and there. And now they're, the fans turning over a 2-point conversion from a week 16 game. Like, what are we doing? What are you guys doing? That's spinning out is what that looks like to me. And it doesn't bode well, I don't think, as you talk about trying to have a fire that's lit for the 2026 season.
Yeah. It's the Puka's going down a dark path, man. That could be some Antonio Brown stuff pretty quickly.
It could be, and they got to pay him money this offseason. They're not. He's in the middle of a contract and get out in a year if this is going to go sideways. It's like, no, you're just about to sign up for the full Puka experience. And I'm getting a little bit of that Antonio Brown thing, where it's that old Ryan Clark quote where he went to the team and he's like, "Look, you pay this guy, he's going to become even more of what he is. Like, and even more of this is going to turn up and amp up even more now. Are you sure?" And Puka's getting into that spot of things.
Mm-hmm. Right. Adis, thank you for the $1.99. Whatever is the decision, still trust Mike. I mean, right now you got to. This team deserves our trust until they do something to break it.
Amen. I fall back in alignment on that too, Addis. Got a general opinion certainly here or there, but I will. Yeah, this is definitely an in Mike and John thing. We definitely say we trust now at this point what they've gotten done.
But I would say that just because we trust them doesn't mean they are invulnerable to making mistakes. Like they did hire Ryan Grubb 2 years ago. And I know that they didn't have a lot of options at the time. They still could have done a lot better than Ryan Grubb.
Yeah, agreed. And that's where it is. It's a balancing act there a little bit with this, but yeah, overall there's the trust, but there is the worry and concern.
Adis, thank you for the $1.99. Again, I know this was asked, but Marlon is a possibility. It seems like he's more than just a possibility at this point.
I would say this is a favorite situation. The man came to your Super Bowl parade and hung out with Mike McDonald while he's still on the Baltimore Ravens roster. So I'm sure he loves Mike. I'm sure he loves that, but I'm sure it's also a little bit of like, he wants to get back and play with his coach. And there's those players that just have that connection with coaches in that way, that special relationship. And we can see with Mike why he probably, does him, create that with these guys just by how he's wired, how he interacts with them, how he's a great coach just overall. So yeah, I think it's more than a real possibility. In fact, I'd say we're the favorites at this point, and we're going to have a hole there for him to fill a spot. In that we might lose 2 different free agents at that position this offseason.
Mm-hmm. John Naylor, thank you for the $1.99. Jake was making a point about non-ref involvement. I get his point. I get his, but it's just like, what do you have as a problem? Here's the thing with this. Then I get on Jake about this at times. There's sometimes a lack of consistency on this stuff where, well, when it's my team, it's the biggest thing that I want to be paying attention to because it's my team that had it was wronged. But if it happens to anybody else on it, I mean, whether or not I'm going to hold it to that same standard or not, I mean, maybe not. And that in itself tells you a little bit about how much they really believe that it's a big problem or a big issue. And whether non-ref involvement or not, I don't know the non-ref involvement point. McCauley's part of it's like, not like he's just some guy in a booth that's just like scratching his ass and he's like, oh, you just basically got that wrong. I mean, they're getting the call correct. This is where we can, like, to me, go into like through the forest and through the trees. It's like, this ain't that difficult.
Was the call correct or not? Bottom line, did they get the call right on the football field? Yes. Undeniably, yes. 100% yes. So there's nothing else left to be talked about at that point. Game over, Batman. There's no more talking. There's no more like, I don't give an S. Get the call right. I don't care if it's got to come from Timbuktu or from Central Asia or from Russia. If they get the call right, that's the point.
I mean, if it's true that Terry McLawley, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Terry, has to call down to tell the referees what the rule is, then the issue is that the referee doesn't know the rule. Like, if he has to be set straight there, then I think the thing that should be more concerning is that the referee needs somebody to call down and tell him what the right call is.
That's right. 100%.
But yeah, I don't know why that would be a problem that some third party, or not even really a third party, but somebody who is not reffing that game intervenes with knowledge that helps, establish what the right thing to do is. I don't understand.
And this is being publicly placed out there, but you're fooling yourself if you don't think this is happening across the board in the NFL. I with the problems that they're having with the officiating crews and with the level of already conspiratorialists that are out there and a bunch of people that moan about these things after the game, there's obviously a heavy emphasis on the NFL trying to get these right for the right reasons, because they know that it doesn't look good on fans, especially in this age of gambling that's out there, to have these plays kind of called into question in that manner. So it's one where, just again, to me, I think that this is all really super silly stuff. And again, speaks to just a little bit of an inability from an organization right now to move on and to be looking forward and to look at why you really lost down the stretch and look at why you fell short, not because of a 2-point play. It's because, like Brendan said earlier, you put a special team unit together that was ass. You had to fire your special teams coordinator mid-season. I mean, the 2-point play was so bad, you had to fire your special teams coordinator, right?
I mean, wait, are you talking the 2-point conversion? Do you mean the punt return?
No, they fired him. I mean, the Rams fired their special teams coordinator after that game. So what was it? Was it the 2-point conversion, or was that your special teams coordinator became exposed to the ultimate degree and you had to do something and you were a little bit desperate at that point? It wasn't really the 2-point conversion at that point. It was the fact that your special teams coordinator sucked. That's your reasoning. Yeah.
Okay. I see what you're going for there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that most fans would be pretty happy if the NFL started doing this thing where we have an eye in the sky that can intervene when something is clearly wrong on the field. Like let's say there's like a brawl. Like, let's say there's a big fight in the middle of a game and the referees are trying to throw flags on people. They don't really know who started it. They don't really know who the people are that they need to throw a flag on. So what if they could turn to somebody who is like this third party that was observing the fight and can objectively say, okay, that guy started it by doing this. This guy threw this punch here. These are the guys we're going to penalize. These are the guys we're going to throw out. Like, I don't know why that would be a problem.
I don't either. But I'm going to be glad we get to next season, so I have to talk about the 2-point conversion. And hopefully Jake's done at this point with his final video with putting up there so we don't have to talk about it anymore, because I'm over it. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely over it.
Yeah. Adis, thank you for the $1.99 again. Sorry for the repeat. Just very curious. No problem, Adis. Nothing wrong with that.
No worries, man.
And John Naylor, thank you for the $1.99. Rams need a substation.
Amen.
Yeah. I mean, Matt Stafford already probably kind of held together by duct tape. A substation would just, you need the Lazarus pits between every single game to get him ready for game day at that point.
His back would spontaneously combust in one of the games. Just all those spinal column going this way and that way.
Yeah. I mean, all jokes aside, though, like I talked about this before, that is an element at play here. Just because Stafford is coming off his best season does not mean that he's suddenly immune to the degrading effects of time. Brett Favre statistically had his best season by far in 2009. And then 2010, he came back and literally could not play. So it happens fast.
And he's getting another year older. It ain't getting any younger. So, yeah, takes that one hit.
Dylan Sosa, thank you for the $4.99. They're mad about the 2-point play, but they didn't say nothing whenever they missed that no-call face mask on Darnold last year. Keep the same energy. Oh, this was when he was with the Vikings. Okay, I remember that now. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Okay.
first game. Well, that's where I say it's the lack of consistency. Don't you'd be mad at one thing in one place, but another thing you're not mad at because it's not your team getting affected by it. Well, are you principled on it in your stance, or is it just that you're only principled on it when it happens to your team in particular? And that's one thing I would argue with when I've seen the Ram fans this year. It happened at the end of the year. There was in the Falcon game there at the end where they threw a deep pass down the field, and it's Tutu Atwell, and Tutu Atwell grabs the face mask of the cornerback. The cornerback doesn't touch him down the field. He grabs the face mask of the cornerback like this, and then the cornerback, is pushing him, is getting him off of his face mask, and you have Rams fans going, "Oh, we got a defensive pass interference uncalled, huh?" And you can literally go back and I can grab a still of the guy grabbing the face mask underneath like this and show it to a Rams fan. I can literally show the still. Cornerback, no hands on offensive player, ball in the air, offensive player with his hand underneath the face mask, starting the whole touching process up down the field. And they'll literally like they're looking at a different reality in front of them. It's like they're being a Mandela effect in the moment. They're like, they can't see it. It's like they have an inability to complain. And that's what I've seen I've seen more of that stuff from Ram fans are classy, and I'm not trying to disparage you guys too much, but I've never seen so many fans this year so up in arms over so many calls that were the correct call. Yeah, there's the 2-point conversion, but I can do a variety of other calls this year where it's like, they got that one right. How come you're complaining about a call they get right? Complain about the calls they get wrong, especially for a team that tends to be, Brendan, kind of favored fairly well. I know they like to tell you McVay's just so great and as a teacher that we can have 5 straight years of having the least amount of penalties in the entire National Football League. That's kind of the other part of this. It's a little frustrating.
Yeah, I totally get it. And it is one of those. It really feels like they thought this year they were the team of destiny. They thought this year was their year, and they can't believe that it wasn't. And they're not the first team to do that. They're not the first team to feel that way and ultimately not win it. But it when it happens, it does stand out.
It does indeed. It does indeed. And they've been now back to 2 conference championships back to back. And that takes a toll on you, climbing up all the way up to the top of that mountain, getting so close to that summit, and then having to fall all the way back to the bottom and start all over again without any reward.
Coda Dad, thank you for the $13.99 Canadian. Great season for Hawks, and you guys made extra special. Shaheed may be gone, but I wonder how or if they involve him more as a receiver. He seemed to have a hard time either catching or getting open. I think the thing to understand there is that, first of all, we don't throw the ball that much. We are a running team, so there are less opportunities anyway. And when we do throw the ball, it mostly goes to JSN. And there are still guys in the offense that are going to get targeted more than Shaheed, like Kupp, like Barner, the easier throws, the simpler throws, the move the chains type throws. So I'm not worried about Shaheed's ability to play receiver because I saw him do it at a very high level in New Orleans. I think he just needs an offseason to work with Darnold and integrate into the offense.
Yeah, I think he definitely would be improved having an offseason to work with him here. And I'm open to keeping him as well. I am. It's about the cost and the price. And, I'm not wanting to break the bank for him. I can't go to that degree of it. But, I think there was a little bit he left. I agree with you, Kodad. And there was a little bit left for me wanting more in the bone as far as the catching aspect if we're going to get him into that $16 million a year territory. It may exist as Brendan's talking about, but to have paid it, I would have liked to have seen it on my team within the conjunction of this team and this chemistry and the way you run your offense to feel like I should go and pay that.
We live in a world where Tutu Atwell got $10 million this last year to catch 4 passes. So
but they regretted giving out that deal. They're not looking at it in retrospect being like, that was smart money spent. In retrospect, they're looking at that deal going, our team could have been much better. We could have brought a difference maker in here, putting that $9 million elsewhere.
Yeah, but the thing is, they paid him based off not a ton of production too. That's the thing. It's like if you're a speedster, even if you don't have very good production, you're still earning money just based off your talent. It feels like,
Well, I think that's the case, and that's where we come down to. I think some teams going to overpay for him, Brendan. But just because teams do it doesn't mean in itself it's smart to do it, right? We can look at examples of teams that do this, but is it actually money spent? Is it actually money that you're getting bang for buck on? And I would offer to you that it's not when you're getting up into that spot in that realm of things. It becomes a question mark, and then you end up probably likely more overpaying for what he's bringing from a special teams quotient of things rather than actually what you're getting on the field. It becomes this theoretical rather than this actuality. And I think whenever you do that in football, regardless of position, that's not a road to necessarily ruin, but it's a road to, messing up your cap.
Man, I just don't want to mess up a team that has a chance to repeat. Like, I would really hate to get to the end of the year and be like, man, we'd be in the Super Bowl if only we had Shaheed back. Like that. So I'm being careful with that. I don't think it's a ridiculous overpay to give him like $16 million a year. It's tough for me to say no to that. Like if it goes beyond that, okay, I get it. But if it's like 16, I think I just have to bite the bullet.
It's not a gross overpay. It does make me just a little bit again, they've done a good job, I think, of finding the right value on these contracts. And it's a little bit of you doing for the projection versus the actuality of production. And that's, again, just a little bit of a, we'll see. I mean, we'll see on that point. And again, your run first offense at that point, Brendan, you're spending now $40 million on one receiver. You're spending now $18 million on your other receiver. And now you're spending $16 million on your third receiver. Like we did this a little bit before. We wanted to be like a run first team. And then we're like, well, let's go spend the money on DK and let's go spend the money on Tyler Lockett. And then let's go draft JSN. And it's like, you got to kind of roster build your resources, especially as you get past this early phase of things into a place where you're load balancing to the place of the roster you're trying to build. What's your philosophy? How do you want to lead with? We lead with defense. We lead with our run game. We lead with our special teams. Passing offense needs to be well suited in there. But how many games do you have this year, Brendan, where you're 26, 27 attempts? If you're 25th in the league in passing attempts, does it make as much sense to be paying three receivers high watermark money? Is that really the smart approach?
Yeah, I think it is if you feel like you need Shaheed to run the ball effectively, because we were not a good running team before Shaheed got here, and then we got much better with Shaheed on the field. That would be
I can't buy in. I can't. I got to push back on that, buddy. That's causation there. Like what you had as well with this run game is an outside zone scheme that we talked about needed to be learned by both the offensive line and the running backs. You had a rookie starter at left guard. You were just getting this front. You didn't get the final five guys into the end of training camp. To the very end of training camp, you're finally like, okay, these will be the five guys. It was a rotating bus all the way through training camp until that point. And we talked about that. That was absent Shaheed or any big play threat, because you did have Torrey Horton here in the early part of the year, and he did provide you some big play ability over the top. He had his touchdowns. He had an ability to take it over there. Your offensively were very productive. To me, my opinion on this would be that it was more about the run-centric details that both the offensive line and the running backs both needed to learn and to master. And once that started to get mastered down through the back half of the season, that was the driving force of the running game stepping forward. I don't think it was purely that just merely Shaheed's presence. I think teams went to the cover two shell, Brendan, to start driving more of the double teams into JSN's direction and to make sure that they had the protection over the top, more so than it was because of just the appearance of Shaheed.
So you don't think losing Shaheed would drag down the run game that we have all that much? If that's the case, then I'm not that compelled to keep Shaheed, admittedly. If that's the case, then I can get a little more behind it, but I need to see it. And I do think that he does have a gravitational effect on defenses. Maybe it's not maybe it's like you said, it's not as extreme as you're thinking.
He doesn't hurt, dude. And I don't think he's a good player. So I don't want to make it sound like I don't like him a lot as a player, but I do think it's one where, while we have a lot of money to spend right now, you do need to get up ahead of things in what you're thinking about and how your roster building, because you're going to be with Devin Witherspoon and JSN this year. And then next year, we're going to have some guys coming up to be paid, including Darnold now is going to be up for a contract extension. And what's that thing going to look like at that time? So you got to be thinking a little bit about this 2 and 3 years down the line. And you just can't go, well, we pay everybody. It's just, you can't do it, I don't think. And you got to be smartly drawn to doing it to the right places. So he does have there is an impact he brings. I like what he does provide to counterbalance a little bit of some of the doubles that go JSN's way. But I also think I have a little more faith in the ability to look at the receiver position, man. Guys are stepping off college scene, jumping into the pros, and they're finding instantaneous production. Like it's a position that's being constantly fed. It's almost kind of turning into a little bit like running backs were for a time now, where it's like, yeah, guys are still being highly paid, but you can find production from these guys. And if you're looking for just the skill set of a guy that's a big play guy, a guy to get over the top, a guy to draw coverage, I think that you can go and find that specified skill set without having to break the bank in order to do so.
You might be right. I'm not ignoring the possibility. I think it's very possible, but I am a Shaheed fan, I will admit. And I think that he does bring something that is hard to replace. So we'll see. We'll see. We might be way off on the contract, by the way. That does happen. Sometimes we are way off on what we think contracts will be.
Well, and if he comes in even $4 million, below that from the 16. I know that seems like a small amount, but that's actually fairly decent for me on that significant wise. That's even a bigger difference there as far as making me a little bit more signed up. And when you start getting past that 15 mark, 16 mark, 17 mark, but like you said, this is a hard one to predict. We'll see where the market really goes with him.
Mm-hmm. Daryl, thank you for the $4.99. I think Arroyo and Barner can be similar to those old Patriot teams with Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski. I also think Mike McDonald is the next Belichick without being an ass. Yeah, I don't think Arroyo and Barner are at the level of Hernandez and Gronkowski as players. Maybe they can provide a similar 1-2, but Gronkowski might be the greatest tight end who ever played, and Hernandez was really good when he played too.
Yeah, I think it'll be hard for them, to Brennan's point, to reach quite the upside of where those guys got, Daryl. But can they have the feasible impact of giving you one of the better 2 tight end sets in the league, with your ability to really put teams into a bind? As we saw, so many teams this year went more to the 3-4 base and really brought out more of that. If they were a 3-4 team, of course, or just the heavier fronts. Even if they were a 4-3 team, you'd see the 5th man down the line of scrimmage. You'd see the base fronts from the defense, personnel wise, and what they're bringing out there. And so if it drives to that, and then you can stoke those mismatches off the back of that personnel grouping you drive from a defensive perspective, then they can have kind of the equivalent impact on not just them as the targets, but the targets across the board and what you can do in your effectiveness. So in certain ways, yes. But Gronk was maybe the best all-time tight end in the sport. But Barner's having a hell of a start to his career, that's for sure, Daryl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am pretty high on Barner. Barner's been a lot better than I thought he would be, but yeah, the Arroyo part, he can do some stuff. I'm not saying that he's a useless player, but I don't know if I would put him on the level of those guys.
Well, we got to see a little more with the Royal. We just do. There was some flashes in there, but I need to see some growth in his game. He's going to have to win at times in the contested catch thing a little bit more consistently for my money at times, because where he makes his money is going to have to be as a pass catcher. And I think he's done a good job with route running and getting open. He's got the speed to punish, especially linebackers and slower safeties. But I'm going to need to get a little bit better on some of the tighter close catch situations that tight ends often have to kind of live in.
Yeah, because he's not that fast. He's not like a 4.5 guy. He's a 4.6 something guy. So he's not going to build separation the way a true speedster tight end can.
Yeah, he's probably more 4.5, 5-ish, I think, on a field. I think he's one of those GPS guys that's super, that's one of the things I think Seahawks really were drove into, is that he's a football fast kind of guy. But again, that's where he's got to win. So he's got to make his money with that. Then he didn't quite make his money with that this year, because I think as a run blocker, it's always going to be a little bit of an up and down game with him there.
Right. Feed me more. Thank you for the $2. Rams have such an egotistical staff. It's exhausting.
Yeah, I look at it as a good thing, because again, I don't think they're really taking this loss in the right manner to build off of it and go into the right direction. They instead seem like sour grapes or cope, or trying to explain it away to some sort of magical whatever. So
yeah, Sean McVay's lost a Super Bowl, and he still said that was the worst loss of his life. So yeah, we're doing something right, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're in their heads, Brendan.
A little bit. And again, it's a good thing, right? If we're hurting our rivals, we're doing something right. Like, when was the last time we really hurt a rival like this? Probably Thanksgiving 2014 against the Niners, eating turkey on their field.
I'd say, losing the conference championship to us didn't help either. But yeah, I think that we were in their heads at that time pretty hard.
Yeah, some people think that game ended the Jim Harbaugh era.
Yeah, I think there's a good argument to be made on it. It didn't get brighter after that for him.
Mm-hmm. Adis, thank you for the $4.99. Oh, by the way, not sure if you guys heard, but the delusional Patriots fan from Barstool Sports said Super Bowl was rigged since it was on the West. Well, that's not what he said. This is Dave Portnoy. Yeah, Dave Portnoy. He's the Barstool Sports guy. He said that he thought it was unfair that the Super Bowl was on the West Coast because we're a West Coast team, which I don't really know what to say to that. I think Dave Portnoy is more of a comedian than anything else. So I don't think you take something like that to heart. I don't think you try to debate against that.
Yeah, I'm at this point thinking Portnoy is just he's playing a character as much as anything else. And he's trying to play the toxic Patriot fan character throughout the week, and this is just him still continuing to do it. So I don't even think believes what he says. I think he just thinks it's going to be good for entertainment. And That's good. That's good for him. That's why I don't like operating in that manner as far as trying to create content, because I just think it's a little disingenuous. But I don't think he even believes that. It's ridiculous all the way around, and it's just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I promise you, there are a lot of people like that. I know people who have met Skip Bayless in real life, and Skip Bayless has said, "I don't actually believe anything that I say on air. I just say it because it'll get people to tune in." Like 100%.
Plenty of content creators do it on YouTube here, Brendan. You know, it's the way that they'll go. It does get you clicks, it does get you views. It does drive me crazy though, because I'd hate to operate like that, because again, you're just being disingenuous to your audience, and they don't know when you're telling them the truth or when you're BSing them.
Yeah, I don't think that Ryan Clark actually thinks it's a problem that Sam Darnold didn't go get turned up after the Super Bowl, but he says it on air. Either he has CTE or he's playing a character.
That's why I think it's just they're trying to say the thing that's going to get the people, you know, they get that reaction. Then that's gold. That's gold right there. Is it?
Mm-hmm. Kevin, thank you for the $1.99. What free agents do you think we don't re-sign? We're going to be doing a show probably in the very near future here where we go into detail here. But I think the obvious don't re-sign is Woolen. I mean, we've been pretty open about that. I don't think Woolen comes back. No way, no how.
Yeah, I think you have you've got no Woolen. I don't think that there's a Kobe Bryant. Give me 1 second here, Brendan.
No problem. Anyway, Mafe, I think, is also probably out just because he didn't really do anything this year. Mm-hmm. Welcome back.
Sorry. Yeah.
But Mafe is probably gone as well, just because he didn't do anything, and we got to flip the edge room over a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, I think Mafe, Woolen, Bryant, those are the ones that I think feel pretty solid here. It's going to be hard to bring him back into the flow. There's a maybe with Joe, but it just depends on the cost. So I think that's kind of about it, though. I don't think you got anybody else that's really a worry or concern beyond that.
Yeah. And I think there's a chance Kobe's cheaper than we're thinking. And if so, maybe we bring him back, because I do think Mike likes him, and he did have a really good postseason. But we do know they tried to re-sign him in the offseason and they couldn't come to a deal. So it seems like Kobe's trying to cash in.
Yeah, it's and I know I'm a repeater on this, Brendan, so I'm sorry on this. It's about how your team's structured and how you're built, right? So Brendan, is this defense built safety based?
No. I mean, if anything, that's kind of the area where we have the most kind of, I don't want to say jags, but just players that can get the job done.
Here we go. And come back to, you paid two safeties at the same time, high watermark money. 2 questions. Was that smart, Brendan?
No, I would not say so.
Is there anybody else in the NFL that's doing this right now, paying people at the Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, top 5, top 10 money, safety position?
If there is, I don't know about them.
So we come back around like, it's not about Kobe or being against Kobe. It's about, this is a road you've gone down that was a failure. This is a road no other NFL team is going down. Probably a good reason for that. Doesn't make intrinsic sense for you to do it and be this outlier team of outlier teams to do it. And I know I'm being hardlined on this a little bit, Brendan, but this is very important, because I think there's a drive from the fans and there's a drive from people to generally just go, got to keep everybody. And then you make these decisions right now, and then you look at it 2-3 years down the line with a cap, and you're like, we don't have a lot of flexibility here now. We're still kind of in our Super Bowl window, but we find ourselves slowly getting restricted, like in a jacket here. And it's like, got to be careful. You got to be careful. And you got to go back to remembering, what do you need to do on both sides of the ball to drive your success by your philosophy? Every team's got their philosophy for how they want to win. Offensively, you want to run the ball. You want to be balanced, and you want to run the ball. Defensively, front 7. Your front 7 will drive the success of this football team. Baltimore Ravens didn't invest a lot in their cornerback position. You had Humphrey at the time, but even at that point, he was a first-round pick that was just kind of still on your roster. The other cornerback position kind of didn't matter. Like Geno Stone. And, you got Marcus Williams out there was your one highest free agent. And then, of course, Hamilton was more of your slot kind of, cornerback there. So to me, it's more front 7. You've got to pay. Eamon 2 years from now will be a part of this as well. And I think that's where the money's got to go, in my opinion. And if you have a guy in Kobe Bryant who's solid, but I'm now paying him more than solid money, I'm paying him like $13-14 million a year. I mean, is there, I mean, Brendan, wouldn't you feel pretty nervous at this point if you signed him to a $14 million per year deal, as Julian Love's contract's about to hit 13.5 on the cap this year?
Yeah, I can't even go close to 14. I don't think. I'm thinking of something way less than that. So yeah, if that's what it is, then thanks for playing Kobe. Thanks for the Super Bowl, but no, I can't even come close.
I guess I'd ask you this. What has he done that wouldn't match up to what drove the Julian Love contract extension a couple of years ago? Matching that contract exactly with inflation rate, not even inflated. That contract 2 years lying down the line now as it's inflated to match that, meaning that it's not equivalent dollar for dollar. It essentially is less money per cap percentage wise than you signed Julian Love at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say Love had made the Pro Bowl by that point a couple times, I think. Kobe's never even come close to a Pro Bowl, to my knowledge. I think that Love is also probably a little bit more flexible as a player in that he can line up in more places. I do think Love was a better player than Kobe Bryant is now, but you are right that he is probably going to get more money than I'm willing to give him. I do agree with that. I'm just saying that for this team, I don't think Kobe Bryant's worth $14 million a year. I don't even think he's the close. And that's not a knock on him. That's more just about this team.
And I could be certainly going into a place where I'm inflating the rates too much, Brendan. But what I'm thinking about this is that you just had the cap go up by $20 million, number one, right? $23 million, something like that. And okay, so that's one side of this. And then again, every time I've looked at NFL history, you're free to correct me on this, but every time I've looked at NFL history of teams that win Super Bowls, those teams that are then free agents that are quality players, not even stars, but the quality players that come off those Super Bowl teams tend to get overpaid almost by just sort of the magic of being a Super Bowl winner a little bit. And that's a little like of what I'm anticipating here as far as this Kobe Bryant contract.
Yeah, like I'd say Milton Williams probably got overpaid. Not that he's bad, not that it's a bad contract, but I think he got like the same money that Leonard Williams got, and Milton Williams is not as good as Leonard Williams. Not even close, I don't think. So you're right.
So like Talana Hufanga, has Kobe Bryant done enough to what Talana Hufanga did to get his extension with the Broncos? Is that a better representation than Love?
That's an interesting one. That's a tough one, right? Because Hufanga had the All-Pro season, but then he got hurt. So it's a little bit tougher to go apples to apples there, but I see what you're getting at.
Amani Hooker.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Hufanga's at $13 million per year. Amani Hooker's at 13.5. Kyle Duggar's at 14.5. Cameron Bynum of Indianapolis is at 15 million. Javon Holland's at 15.1 million per year. Mm-hmm. You see where I'm going like with this, like where it's like, it doesn't make sense a little on the surface, but that's where that inflation thing like cooks up, right? And like just starts, it really starts to set in a couple years down the line on these deals where even that Love contract, that's really him making at that point versus the cap percentage. If you think about it from 2 years ago, it's really still him making probably 8 or 9% less than Love signed for the cap hit and how it hit that contract 2 years ago for Love. Mm-hmm. So it's still him. You're right about him not being the player. I don't think he is either. I think Love is a much better player. I do. But as far as how he'll be paid and how that all lines up with the inflation and all that, I think he's kind of in that place. I think he gets the Hufanga contract essentially.
Yeah. And good for him. I just don't want it to really happen here. I view him as replaceable.
Yeah. So you're on that spot then, that it's like when it comes to the low balance game with the safeties, that doing that, two guys at basically top 10-ish, top 8-ish kind of money is probably not the best, route to roll.
Yeah, not with
like even Love right now, by the way, is on only $11 million per year average.
Yeah, the Love deal looks pretty good right now. And that's the way most of these deals go, right? You sign it, you look at it, you're like, ugh. But then you wait 2 years and everything's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. But and that was when we both liked at the time too.
Yeah. But I still don't think you need to bring back Kobe at that price. I think you can find somebody. You might already have that somebody on the team in Ty Okada who can do the job. And Ty Okada is going to be cheap because he's a exclusive rights or whatever.
100%. Mm-hmm. And right now you've got, by the way, here's your free agents at safety position this offseason. Kyle Duggar coming off a bad year and being traded to Pittsburgh. Jalen Thompson with Arizona, who is okay. Jimmy Ward, Houston, 35 years old, older than dirt. He's pretty much done. Andre Cisco from the Jets. Kevin Byard at almost 33 years old, 10-year pro out of Chicago, is now going to be a free agent. So when you look at it,
He made the All-Pro team this
Kevin,
last year,
oh yeah,
though. He's gonna get some
Kevin's good. He's a
credit.
ball hawk still. He's still making. I don't think Chicago's going to let him go though. As well, I think that they keep him in
You're
house.
right.
But that still shows you where it's like it's not a deep list of safety free agent safeties as well. It's a couple of guys out there that Reed Blankenship, Cameron Curl, Geno Stone. It's kind of a weaker group out there, but hard to predict. We'll see. We'll see what this thing you never know with these kind of contracts, but I do think it's going to be around that $13 million for Bryant. That's why I think he didn't sign it at the start of the year. Cause I think the deal you're talking about was the deal the Hawks offered him that reportedly he turned down at the start of the year, where they wanted to get him on that more of that $8 million a year rather than the 13.
Yeah, that's kind of what it would take for me to want to bring Kobe back, $8 to $9 million a year.
Yeah,
at that point, I would
sense.
do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve 13, 14, 15. I'm just saying I don't really think this team should be the team to do it.
Yeah, I agree. He's earned the money. He bet on himself, and he earns that right to make that payday. But I do think that this team is not going to do well to elongate the Super Bowl window by overpaying for players, in-house players, by overvaluing in-house players. They've got to stay on the line of paying for the right pay of performance of what they're actually getting on the field.
Sean, thank you for the $1.99. Does 16 million even move the needle with the new cap? I think the thing to keep in mind here is that the cap hits accelerate. So like if you get Shaheed, let's say 3 years, 48 million, that first year cap hit might only be like 9 million. And then the next year cap hit might be like 16. And then the third year cap hit is like 25 or something like that. Not exact numbers, but something like that. So the cap hits accelerate faster than the cap does. So you have to think about things like that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with it too, is it's probably a 3-year deal. So you're not going to probably put the 4 years together on this to kind of massage the numbers out. And certainly the team can find ways here, Sean, to be able to manipulate the numbers if they want to embrace void year stuff and all that. But I think void years are not going to be as much on the table. You talk about something that you're probably not going to want to give to new ownership. You might be willing to give the escrow contracts, right, and put those money on. But did the new ownership want to be taking on actual void years down the line to make that work at this point? Maybe not. So we'll see on that. But it doesn't hit the cap in itself. The issue does come into play of you do have the JSN deal, you do have the Jackson deal, which should kind of for the most part be equivalent to what they're making. There's going to be a little change in that, where I think there's a chance that it does increase a little with those guys versus the Cross deal, because they're not in the 4th year where Cross was in the 4th year. But it's still going to be where that cap space gets eaten up pretty quickly as we go down the line in what we do. So yeah, you could afford it, but is that the best place to put that money versus putting that money elsewhere? Is there a different point of impact you could bring to this team that could supersede that as far as helping this team go win football games? And that'd be the thing that maybe I would counter if you're talking about spending that on the receivers, your third receiver now that's your high paid guy, versus balancing it in other areas.
Yeah, like make no mistake, the Seahawks could afford to do everything they want to do this offseason. They could re-sign everybody that is a free agent on their team if they wanted to, but that's probably not optimal. That's what we're trying to figure out here. What is actually optimal?
Let's break it down like this, Brennan. Let's say that I could, and I'm not wanting to do this, okay? But this is just as an exercise to this point. Let's say the exact money I spent on Rashid Shaheed, I could spend on Linderbaum. What's the better allocation of resources in that case?
Yeah, and if that is the case, I think Linderbaum's going to cost a little bit more than that. But yeah, that's.
But you're in the neighborhood.
Even if it is, it doesn't matter. It's still pretty easy at that point.
And that's where I say it does become not just about what you're paying that guy. It becomes about what you didn't do as an alternative move with that money is the way to have better impact and more impact on your team. And to me, run-centric team driven by its lines and dominating the line of scrimmage. Give me a guy that can help me dominate the line of scrimmage versus the flashy player on the outside that can take the top off the defense.
Yeah. So again, like I do like this comment because it kind of does get to the point that I hammer, which is that the cap goes up by so much every year now. These contracts you sign end up not being nearly as big a deal as you think. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that you should then just buy every player in the world.
Yeah, agreed. You got to be careful, but there is plenty of reason. There is still, like, we're not restricted here, and we can do it if this team is bought into Shaheed getting better in the future on this, and that the chemistry between him and Darnold is going to come along, and that the offseason will help in making that happen, and his special teams value is good enough. That's an X factor he does add that you don't get from just normal wide receivers. So that could be enough that it mitigates it. And I'm not going to be super complaining or bitching and moaning if they do happen to sign it. I'm just making the argument for why I think that there's some smarter approaches to go at this.
Frogman, thank you for the member message. A position to watch is cornerback. Job and Reek are free agents. And yeah, we're going to talk a lot about corners this offseason, both in free agency and the draft. One of our top positions of need.
And Frogman, we did speak a bit that Marlon Humphrey was a guy that just here at the parade that is going to be released with familiarity with Mike McDonald's system. Not a fix in himself, but you're going to maybe have to get a couple of guys, not the worst of a Job replacement at the very least, if it goes that way.
Yeah. Did you run into him at the parade since he was there? You were there.
I missed him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You could do worse. Hopefully he has a little bit left in the tank. It wouldn't shock me if he doesn't, though. I would not be surprised if he came here and didn't even make the team.
It's all about where I think his health is at. And as a guy that's been in this league since 17, and he's still just barely turned 30. So like from not old. And again, a guy that has all of his understanding in this defense of what he needs to do. Do you give him an off season? He's like, this will be my final off season and my final year, and I'm going to go for that Super Bowl, and we're going to make this happen in Seattle. And you're going to give me like, Rocky in one of those montages, where he's just out there like, running through the snows and doing all of his drills to the utmost to just try to flip. Maybe you have him in that realm, but it's a worthwhile risk to be on a 1 year, $6 million deal too. That's one where it's like, you're not rolling the dice there. That's very much just kind of throwing a flyer out there, and you're going to do some other supplemental moves around this to where it wouldn't be just sort of Marlon Humphrey or bust. You're going to be adding into this cornerback room on top of that with some true quality beyond that. So it's just one of the little additions you'd add on top.
Poppin' Bottles, thank you for the $4.99. If the Raiders don't trade Crosby, should Seattle go after Trayvon Walker, young and can stop the run? Jags already paying Josh Allen. That's a pretty good one as far as like Crosby consolation prizes go, I guess. I don't hate that.
Yeah. They're $11.69 million in the hole, and they've got him on his 5th-year option at $15 million. So there's a lot here where you would wonder about them just signing him to an extension. I can't think that they're going to let him go, where you could just, they could get him to an extension, do the cross thing, essentially vet minimum down to $15 million. The rest of the money would be eaten up in fact, they would save money with the bonus money that he'd have in tow at that point. So I'd expect them to probably get a deal done with Walker. If he does become available, that's a possibility, but he is going to probably cost you still. You got to pay him. It's at least a 1st-round pick and probably a 2nd-round pick to get it done.
So a little less than Crosby, but still a lot. Yeah, and but man, he is coming off a down year, 3.5 sacks. Dang, I didn't realize it was that bad.
Well, remember, he had the cast on his hand. Injury stuff this year for him was a little bit of a thing. So that's where there is a little bit of reason. So maybe that's also going to make this problematic for. And look, they're $11 million a day giving money in the hole right now, Brendan, are the Jaguars. They're not sitting on necessarily a way to, like, they've got Trevor's deal down to that base $2 million salary for 2026, so they can't even base the bonus Trevor's salary on this one. They can't even, can they release? Man, they only save, they can save a little bit of money on the Eric Armstead deal. So maybe they just move the Eric Armstead deal over to Trayvon. But I can't think that they're going to let him go with the year that they had. If they do, I'm on board with it popping. He's a big physical edge. He's used to doing a variety of different things back into his Georgia days, as far as spot drop into space, like we sometimes can ask our edges to do. Really long. He's actually just the type of edge that Mike McDonald would look for, I would think. But you would have to pay him if you got him. You'd have to give him probably, $20 million a year at least. You'd have to give at least what was the Van Ness last year, the contract for Van Ness. Yeah. You're probably having to match that as a bare minimum, if not supersede that. But
yeah, and he's a former number 1 overall pick, so I feel like there's a tax there.
There is usually a tax there, yeah. So probably even a little bit beyond that, maybe up around 23, 24. So I'm okay with it if the team wants to be on board with it, because it is a fit. He is young, still got some upside from what he did this year, to where he's probably better than what he was quite be able to show this year, because he did play with the cast for a lot of the season and just wasn't at 100% health. But yeah, it would be a little bit pricey. Jaguars would want a lot probably for him.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the choice we have to make. Do you want to make that big trade to get a franchise edge, or do you want to try to make it work with, like I said, the Khalil Macks of the world? There are a couple guys like that in free agency that you could get that you don't have to trade for, that aren't as good, but you can still get good stuff out of them, and it's not going to cost you the picks or as much money.
I'm more in your boat. We come back to get the best value. You know, if I'm making the trade for the edge, I want a Crosby, right? I want a Myles Garrett. I want to make a move for a JJ Watt from a couple of years ago when he was running at his best. I want to try to go find that difference maker, you know, the Reggie White impact to the Packer defense back in the 90s. I don't want to do it for a guy that's like, I'm really paying a ton for him. I'm giving a lot of draft capital for just kind of he's, you know, solid edge. He's a better edge than anything we got on the roster, but not quite stardom, you know? So I don't want to, that to me is I'd much rather try to go find that value, because we've seen a lot of these kind of 30, 32, 33, 34-year-old edges guys that can still be very productive in a rotational role coming off the edge in these defenses. Like DeMarcus Ware going to the Broncos a couple of years ago when they had Von Miller. And he was very much one of those old elder statesman guy coming from the Cowboys, but still able to be very effective for them off that edge in the role that they put him in.
Yeah, Joey Bosa is a free agent this offseason too, if you want to ride that roller coaster.
Boy, he looked done last year with the Bills to me.
He had a couple really nice games, I will say, but that's a roller coaster I don't know if I want to get on. But there are guys like that, you know, Kwity Paye's a free agent. You don't need to trade anybody to get him. I think Hassan Reddick's a free agent. You can like find the guy that you think has gas left in the tank and then go for it without giving up the picks. That is a viable strategy.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's, and certainly there could be some releases in there too of veteran guys, like we're talking about the ring chasers. Can you get a ring chaser guy off the edge that, you know, wants to come to Seattle and loves what we're doing out here, and okay, I'll become part of the rotation. So that's another part of this that, you know, could shake free.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. I want to tell you guys real quick about Sleeper here. So let me get the graphics on screen here. So football season is over, but that doesn't mean the action stops on Sleeper. There's still a lot of really fun stuff you can do over there. We've got basketball, college basketball. We got some tennis and golf stuff you can go on over there. So don't forget about Sleeper just because football is over. You can get on over there right now. You can use a promo code. My promo code is SBN and Brandon's is NEST, Nest. Either one will get you a $100 match up to $100 on your first deposit. And there's also a free bet you can get right now just for making an account. No deposit required, $20. So go claim that and go check out Sleeper as much as you can during this football off season. Football will be here again before you know it. There's some new stuff being added to Sleeper as well. And of course, we've got baseball coming up. Hockey's going on right now. There's plenty of stuff to get up to. So go check out Sleeper, download the app, #1 sports app right now. Jump on over, make your daily fantasy picks, and go have some fun with sports. All right. Okay. So, anything else you really want to talk about in this show this week? Anything else you wanted to cover?
I think we covered it good, man. I think we got the end-to-end on this one. It's going to be a really exciting off-season. I mean, we're going to be Brendan turning around here to free agency in just a little over a month for agency begins. So it's going to be a very quick respite for us before this thing turns around to turn, you know, but these Seattle Seahawks, I think what makes this most interesting is you have your off-season, Brendan, where you kind of find yourself in a bind. Like last year, you had to find value signings in Cooper Kupp and even Sam Darnold and DeMarcus Lawrence because, yeah, you had a little bit of cap space, but you had the dead money on the other side of it. Whereas now you have the Seattle team that's so healthy as far as their cap space, both this year and into the future, doesn't have to necessarily break the bank on monster contracts that are going to harm this. And they go so many different directions, you know, and from John's standpoint, you do feel a little bit going back to the house money feeling of it. We got the Super Bowl already in the bank. I can kind of do whatever I want. You know, there's just a feeling of maybe you feel the same way, a lack of pressure that you might have to repeat it with the, like, no, hey, we can kind of roll whichever one we want. There's so many different avenues they can go down in as far as their approach here. It's really not set. And that gets me so excited, especially for a team that still is going to return almost everybody as it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great feeling, man. It's a great feeling. I think this team we're not going anywhere. We got a very tough division to play in. I will say that it's going to be very tough to win the division again next year. This division will not just give the NFC West crown to us, but I think this team is up for the challenge. And I mean, we've got the Super Bowl in our back pocket. So whatever happens from here on out, this era of Seahawks football is a resounding success. And I'm really happy I was able to cover it every week with you throughout the season.
Brother, it's been a pleasure and honor, not just this year, but to be able to do this with you for years. And it's just been a lot of fun. It gets funner every year being able to do this with you and chop this up. The results help, but I always think we're getting a little bit better by this year by year and how we do this. And it's just phenomenal to be able to do this with every year. I'm looking forward to this next year, but it's been a hell of a ride this season. And I'm just glad we were able to do this together, man. Be able to experience this through these years.
Yeah, so maybe a show next week where we talk about the outgoing and potential free agents and cuts and et cetera, et cetera. Would you be on board with that? Because free agency is going to be here in like less than a month now, or almost exactly a month. So we got to get on top of this stuff, or else it's just going to sneak up right up on us. The combine's in less than 2 weeks, which feels insane. Like usually I'm used to waiting months after the season ends for the combine.
Oh yeah.
So the things are going to sneak up quick. So we're going to get right on it, everybody. Believe me.
We got a lot of work to do, Brent. I mean, we're both probably behind on our scouting prospects. So we're going to be grinding on scouting tape and scouting on free agent tape. But it's a good problem to have. I'll do this every year, all the time, every single season, if we could.
Yeah. And it's a good draft to be behind on your scouting, to be perfectly honest.
It's not the worst of years to not necessarily have deep dived everybody. Yeah.
Adis the Gamer, thank you for the $1.99. This show will never get old. Keep going. That's the plan.
Thank you, Addis.
Until they kick us off.
Till they said we can't talk no more. And thank you for all your support today, man. But it's such, we know this is a big time honor for us to get to do this for you guys. You could be watching anywhere, you could be listening anywhere. There's content all over the place. You guys have chosen to hang out with us and make this your stop. And it is really, really much appreciated by both me and Brendan, as we really love what we get to do. And you guys allow us to get to do what we do.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, before we get out of here, just a couple things. First, I am 16 subscribers short of 21,000.
Come on.
We're almost there. Should get there maybe over the weekend. Who knows? So if you haven't subbed up to me yet, please do so. Go sub on up over to Brandon as well. He's got he's grown a lot over the last year, I know. So keep on feeding that beast, especially right now when there's going to be so much to talk about in such a short period of time. And yeah, that's about it. I've got a few more videos going up later today. I'm going to go actually record one right now about some of this coaching news. And over the weekend, just as a quick note to anybody who may be interested in this kind of thing, I plan on starting a game on Twitch that people have been asking me to play for years and years and years. Finally going to play it, The Witcher 3. People have been asking for that one forever. Mm-hmm. All right.
Love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big one. That's going to be fun. All right. So the Seahawks are Super Bowl champions once again. For a lot of you guys, this is the first one that you guys got to experience. So it's a special one. Every Super Bowl you win is special. Appreciate this moment. Cherish this moment. Be happy that we are here. We have reached the top of the mountain. We have justified this era of Seahawks football already, and it feels like it just started. There is so much more this group can do in the coming years, and we've already gotten to the top. So be excited for the future. Be excited for the present. Don't forget about the past. Don't forget about the journey that we took to get there. And let's buckle up to do it all over again in 2026. I'm going to be here. Brandon's going to be here. We're going to be here together. The offseason has already started as far as I'm concerned. So let's keep it going and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.